I will definitely demand that Fang Chen remove his protective armor to fight me fairly. For now, we can only cease hostilities temporarily and fight again another day." When Hong Yao and the others looked awkward under young King Hua's gaze, the protective armor on Fang Chen made them feel deeply guilty, trapped in the awkward position of being unable to clear their names even if innocent. So how could they brazenly demand that Fang Chen be declared the winner? Furthermore, a draw was already an unexpected gain. Before this match, they had fully prepared for Fang Chen's crushing defeat and the Qingyun Sect's humiliation, so this draw had salvaged a modicum of their dignity. Feng Guchan snorted coldly, speaking unwillingly. The outstanding disciple trained by the sect leader Peak really opens one's eyes. They even resort to cheating in a mere friendly spar. However, Cao Zhen's hands were already crippled, and he was incapable of fighting further. No matter how unwilling Feng Guchan was, it was useless, so he could only cup his fists towards Yang Qinghua and say, "Elder Yang, forgive us for the farce. This is the kind of conduct the sect leader Peak of my Qingyun Sect is known for. I hope you can overlook it." Fang Guchan had originally intended to mock Liu Wenchen and severely undermine the immense prestige he had built up recently, but unfortunately, he could only throw out a few snide remarks to annoy him in the end. Yang Qinghua nodded expressionlessly, saying, "This elder has indeed broadened my horizons today. I have seen many sore losers, but someone this petty about losing is a first for me, using a fifth layer golden core protective armor in a Foundation Establishment realm spa. Tisk tusk, truly an eye-opener." This exchange between the two made Liu Wenchen and several other elders feel their old faces burn with shame, yet they had no way to explain the matter clearly. Cao Zhen, on the other hand, let out a furious laugh. "I knew it. Where would you get such a powerful physique? You were cheating all along." His nearly shattered spirit recovered instantly at this realization, and undisguised contempt covered his face. Losing is nothing to be ashamed of, but being a sore loser is. If you were afraid of losing, you could have surrendered early, and I, Cao Zhen, would have at least thought better of you. Winning against me by cheating, you've really brought honor to your last 18 generations of ancestors. For a brief moment, he had truly thought he was far inferior to Fang Chen. Now that he knew the truth, he felt immensely relieved, so much so that he could no longer even feel the pain in his two fists. Fang Chen raised his eyebrows slightly, casually tearing off the protective armor on his body and tossing it to the ground. His gaze was calm as he said, "Cheating, I think you are mistaken." He put force into the sole of his right foot, and the granite ground beneath his feet shattered into countless tiny fragments with a crisp crack. Flicking his toe, he sent a small shard of granite flying at high speed straight towards Cao Zhen. Young Qinghua's complexion changed slightly, and he cried out, "Cao Zhen, watch out." Cao Zhen dismissed the warning with disdain, snorting, "He's nothing but a cheating wretch. Even if my hands are crippled, crushing him is as easy as turning over my palm." He looked at the incoming rock shard with contempt, swinging his long leg like a whip to strike it hard. In his mind, this seemingly slow-moving shard would be easily shattered by his kick. But who would have expected that the moment his leg made contact, an unimaginably immense force erupted from the shard? With a sickening squelch, the rock tore straight through the flesh and bone of his muscular thigh, carrying a spray of blood as it pierced through his leg and embedded itself in the massive stone pillar in the distance that required 3 people to wrap their arms around. Boom, the stone pillar trembled violently, sending clouds of dust raining down. A bottomless pit emitting wispy white smoke came into the view of all present. As for Cao Zhen, after a brief moment of numbness, the excruciating pain from the puncture wound in his leg washed over him like a flood. He screamed in agony on the spot, "My leg!" With that cry of pain, he lost his balance and collapsed to the ground. Staring at the wrist, thick bloody hole in his leg, another wave of searing pain hit him, and he shrieked in terror and agony. The crowd all turned to look, their pupils constricting violently. A mere rock shard had forcibly punctured the leg of a 9th-layer Foundation Establishment realm martial artist. What kind of terrifying physique was this? As everyone turned their gaze to Fang Chen, their complexions all changed drastically. They had originally thought Fang Chen held back 2 moves because he was wearing the protective armor, but now they understood. Fang Chen's physique was so powerful that he had been holding back to spare the Zhenlei Sect's dignity. Feng Guchan's old pupils shrank sharply. His mouth opened and closed, but not a single word came out. Young Qinghua was even more stunned on the spot. What kind of physical strength could be this horrifying? Fang Chen picked up the protective armor, brushed off the dust on it, and sighed softly. "Why did you have to force me to make a move? Originally, Cao Zhen could have avoided this suffering. Once his hands were crippled, he could have stopped fighting. But he refused to accept his loss, and insisted on accusing me of cheating. Liu Wenchen drew a sharp breath. The Fang Chen before him seemed like a stranger once again, leaving him lost in thought for a long time. When Yang Qingyun rushed over anxiously to check Cao Zhen's injuries, he finally snapped out of his daze, an excited grin spreading across his face as he spoke with triumphant satisfaction. Elder Yang, I must thank you for accusing my disciple of cheating. Otherwise, this sect leader would never have known my disciple's physique is this powerful. When he was accused of condoning cheating earlier, he, as the sect leader, had lost all face. Now, Fang Chen had thoroughly humiliated Yang Qingyun with a single kick, which was immensely satisfying to him. When Hong Yao also wore a look of utter satisfaction, chiming in with a snide tone, Elder Yang, have you broadened your horizons again today? The sore loser from another sect in your eyes was actually just holding back to spare your sect's disciple the embarrassment of a crushing defeat. It's a pity you didn't appreciate the gesture. Tusk, tusk, tusk. Lai Qingfeng and Zhao Wuji wore smiles on their faces, saying nothing but exchanging amused glances, feeling utterly delighted in their hearts. Hadn't they been harping on about that fifth layer, golden core protective armor just now? Well now, not only had Cao Zhen lost both his fists, he had also lost a leg, and his dignity had been trampled over and over again. Yang Qingyun's face was unspeakably grim. The mockery he had thrown at the Qingyun Sect earlier was now being thrown right back at him, and this karma had come far too quickly. He stared at Fang Chen with barely concealed rage, saying, was it necessary to be so cruel? Fang Chen stood with his hands behind his back and spoke calmly. I yielded 2 moves to you first, yet you claimed I was cheating, even dragging the honor of my Azure Cloud Sect and 18 generations of my Fang clan into the fray. When I finally struck back, you accused me of being overly ruthless. Do you get to claim every side of an argument? Yang Qingyun fumed. You dare speak to an elder of this standing in such a manner? He was a senior figure after all. What right did a mere lowly disciple like Fang Chen have to talk back to him? Fang Chen remained entirely unafraid and spoke evenly. Has Elder Yang forgotten that you were the one who brought your disciples to our door to issue challenges? Have you also forgotten that I had no desire to fight Cao Zhen, and you were the one who insisted on setting up a wager? I did as you wished and granted your request. Why are you flying into a rage now? That single retort left Yang Qingyun speechless, fury searing in his chest. This time, they had quite literally offered their own faces up to be slapped. Originally, Cao Zhen had defeated many disciples from the sect master peak, which was already enough to avenge him being cast out of Azure Cloud Sect in the past, and more than enough to humiliate the sect, but they were insatiable, forced Fang Chen to accept the challenge, and as a result, ended up being thoroughly crushed by Fang Chen instead. You win this round. Yang Qingyun glared viciously at Fang Chen, picked up Cao Zhen, and prepared to leave. But Fang Chen said coolly, important people like you tend to have poor memory, Elder Yang. You still haven't handed over the wager you promised me, the Dragon Pattern Vine Spirit Essence, Junior. Yang Qingyun's face froze. That jade casket of Dragon Pattern Vine Spirit Essence was the last of what Cao Zhen had in his possession, the very last remaining stock from that ancient cave abode. It would take another 10 years for enough to condense again. How could he bear to just give it away like that? But the moment he hesitated, Liu Wenchen tapped his finger lightly on the tea table, his aura imposing even without anger. Elder Yang, you are not planning to renege on your bet, are you? You stormed into Azure Cloud Sect to flaunt your power and humiliate us, and now that Fang Chen has turned the tide, you intend to weasel out of your debt and leave scot-free. Is there such a convenient thing under heaven? That immediately shattered all of Yang Qingyun's little schemes. He knew full well that if he did not hand over the Dragon Pattern Vine Spirit Essence today, he would never be allowed to leave Azure Cloud Sect. Gritting his teeth, he took out the Dragon Pattern Vine Spirit Essence with extreme reluctance, flung it fiercely at Fang Chen, and snarled, Brat, this elder will not forget you. Sensing the hidden force infused into the jade casket, Fang Chen let out a faint sneer. That Yang Qingyun still could not accept his loss even now, and wanted to humiliate Fang Chen one last time before he left. He activated his dragon elephant battle physique without making a sound, pushing his physical strength to its absolute limit. Unfazed, he flicked his sleeve, catching the flying jade casket mid-flight. The tremendous force contained within it immediately erupted. At minimum, it would have shattered Fang Chen's arm. At worst, it would have sent him flying. It was hard to say if he would have been seriously injured, but he would definitely have lost face. Fang Chen did not dare underestimate the force. The power he had accumulated surged out instantly, clashing with the incoming force and cancelling it out. A series of explosions rang out from within his sleeve, the fabric flailing wildly, before everything fell silent 3 breaths later. Fang Chen grasped the jade casket casually, cupped his fist in salute towards Yang Qinghua, and said, "Thank you for your generous gift, Elder Yang." Yang Qinghua's pupils constricted sharply. That throw just now, while not his full strength, had still contained 20 to 30% of his power. Fang Chen had caught it with such ease. Only now did he realize that the kick Fang Chen had used to send the stone flying earlier had not been his full physical strength at all. This boy was still holding back his power. Yang Qinghua was stunned. When had Azure Cloud Sect produced such a terrifyingly talented disciple? But Cao Zhen still did not know his place. Relying on Yang Qinghua's protection, he snarled venomously, "Fang Chen, this grudge between us is far from over." Fang Chen glanced at him coolly and said, "Save your breath. If the True Thunder Sect is willing to take you in, then focus on bringing glory to True Thunder Sect. You can forget any foolish ideas of redeeming your honor and making Azure Cloud Sect regret casting you out." Cao Zhen was furious and was about to speak, but was cut off by a cold snort from Yang Qinghua. "Enough, when we get back, you will focus on cultivation. Don't even think about anything else." The gap between the two was already so vast that even if Fang Chen stood still and did nothing, he could easily cripple Cao Zhen. Yang Qinghua could not even imagine how much larger the gap would be the next time Cao Zhen sought Fang Chen out. If Cao Zhen tried to challenge him again, he would only bring even greater humiliation upon himself than he had today. Yang Qinghua stared deeply at Fang Chen for a long moment, then picked up Cao Zhen and left with a dark, stormy expression on his face. The delight on Liu Wenchen's face was plain to see. He asked eagerly, "Fang Chen, what is the matter with your physique? How did it become so overwhelmingly powerful?" When Hongyao, Lai Qingfeng, and Zhao Wuji all turned their gazes to him, equally curious. Judging by the kick he used to send the stone flying earlier, Fang Chen could fight an early-stage Golden Core Realm cultivator, relying solely on his physical strength. Feng Guchan's face was grim. He did not say a word, but his ears twitched slightly as he secretly tried to pry into Fang Chen's secret. He too wanted to know how this brat had become so strong. Fang Chen glanced sidelong at Feng Guchan, the corner of his mouth twitching up slightly. "As for matters related to my cultivation, allow me to report them to you privately later. For now, let us discuss how we should dispose of this dragon, pattern, vine, spirit essence." Liu Wenchen caught his meaning and glanced at Feng Guchan, silently cursing himself for being careless. How could he ask about Fang Chen's secrets right in front of a turncoat like Feng Guchan? He nodded slightly, his gaze falling on the dragon pattern vine spirit essence in Fang Chen's hand, a hint of longing flashing in his eyes. This was an extremely rare treasure that could let a mid-stage foundation establishment realm disciple break through an entire cultivation level directly, its value second only to the fortune of 10,000 swords, Sect's sword forest. However, he did not make the decision for Fang Chen and said very fairly, "This casket of dragon pattern vine spirit essence was won by your own strength, so it is only right that you dispose of it as you wish. As long as you do not give it to someone from an outside sect, the sect will not interfere." When Hongyao, Lai Qingfeng, and Zhao Wuji all nodded in agreement, the sect truly had no right to seize this casket of dragon pattern vine spirit essence. Feng Guchan's lips moved, but he could not find any excuse to demand that Fang Chen hand it over to the sect. After all, the dragon pattern vine spirit essence was won by Fang Chen after he set a trap for Yang Qinghua and relied entirely on his absolute strength. It had almost nothing to do with the sect. Hearing this, Fang Chen breathed a quiet sigh of relief. In truth, Yang Qinghua had never intended to honor the agreement at all. Were it not for his fear of Liu Wenchen's overwhelming prestige, he would never have obediently handed over the dragon pattern vine spirit liquid to him. If Liu Wenchen had used this as a pretext to insist he turn over all the spirit liquid, Fang Chen would have had no grounds to refuse. Since Liu Wenchen was being so generous and lenient, Fang Chen naturally had no intention of being miserly either. This batch of spirit liquid could be roughly divided into 10 portions. This disciple intends to give 1 portion each to the Alchemy Peak, Heavenly Sword Peak, and Carefree Peak. When Hongyao, Lai Qingfeng, and Zhao Wuji all broke into delighted smiles, the gazes they cast upon Fang Chen grew even fonder and more appreciative. Their high opinion of Fang Chen was well placed. When this little fellow received good fortune, he truly did not forget them. Fang Chen then added, 3 portions will go to the sect leader Peak. A satisfied smile spread across Liu Wenchen's face. 3 portions were more than enough for several talented mid-foundation establishment realm disciples to use. Moreover, compared to the other peaks, Fang Chen had given 3 times as much to his peak, which was a great show of respect for his master. Seeing Liu Wenqin's tacit approval, Fang Chen immediately divided 5 portions on the spot and handed them out to the respective peak leaders. He then cupped his fists in salute and said, "If there are no other matters, this disciple shall take his leave first." But just as he was about to leave, Feng Guchan grew anxious and snapped coldly, "Hold it. Are you not planning to give a portion to my Samsara peak?" Of the 5 peaks present, the other 4 all received a share, only Samsara peak was left out. What is the meaning of this? Fang Chen paused in his steps and said calmly, reporting to the Grand Elder, "This disciple indeed has no intention of giving a portion to Samsara peak. I hope the Grand Elder understands this fact." This blunt, unceremonious response made Feng Guchan narrow his aged eyes. "Fang Chen, do you not hold Samsara peak in any regard?" Having failed to extort the share he wanted, he immediately resorted to threats. Fang Chen remained completely unafraid, his expression as calm as ever. The Grand Elder jests, "I am but a lowly disciple. How dare I dismiss Samsara peak? It is just that the Grand Elder seems to hold a great grudge against me. While I cannot afford to offend you, I can certainly keep my distance, can I not? This disciple has no wish to have too much involvement with Samsara peak. I hope the Grand Elder will understand." What a ridiculous farce! Not long ago, the Grand Elder had heaped sarcasm and mockery on Fang Chen, and even sided with outsiders to accuse him of cheating. Now he wanted a share of the benefits. He could keep dreaming. Wen Hongyao had always had a fiery temper, and upon hearing this, she immediately snapped back. "Feng Guchan, have you no shame for an elder of your standing, threatening a disciple just to get hands on his benefits?" Even Lai King Feng, who had always remained neutral, found this unbearable to watch. Grand Elder, whatever internal strife you have with the sect leader is a matter within the sect, but siding with outsiders to suppress your own disciples, disregarding the entire sect's honor, that is going too far. Now you are demanding Fang Chen's dragon pattern vine spirit liquid, let alone that he refuses to give it to you. Even if he wanted to, I would advise him against it. Zhao Wuji was even more displeased and said, "Grand Elder, you ought to know when to stop. You should be thanking your lucky stars that Fang Chen did not report your behavior to the Grand Elders. How dare you have the audacity to demand his resources?" Liu Wenqin felt immense relief in his heart. In all his previous disputes with the Grand Elder, the other elders had always remained neutral to avoid getting dragged into trouble. Now that all 3 elders were firmly supporting him, he could not help but feel secretly excited. Of course, he was well aware that the 3 elders had changed their stance entirely because they valued Fang Chen highly. Thinking of this, the way he looked at Fang Chen grew even more approving. Fang Chen was truly his lucky star. As such, when he turned to face Feng Guchan, he carried himself with far more calm and poise than he had in the past. "Great Elder, you have all heard it. How my disciple chooses to dispose of the dragon pattern vine spiritual fluid is his own right. Stay out of this." Feng Guchan's expression shifted, secretly shocked by the change in the 3 elders' stance. What was going on? Just because he had targeted Fang Chen, the 3 elders had sided with Liu Wenqin. He could scarcely believe Fang Chen was that important. If he had known that Fang Chen had won the favor of several supreme elders, he would not have had this confusion. With everyone present shielding Fang Chen, Feng Guchan saw no way to demand the dragon pattern vine spiritual fluid, and could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. "Brat, you probably don't know that a commissioner from the Heavenly Secret Pavilion has already arrived at our Azure Cloud Sect, ready to hold you accountable for your crimes at any time. I originally planned to put in a few good words for you, but now it seems there is no need for that." Fang Chen was shocked inwardly. A Heavenly Secret Pavilion commissioner holding him accountable. What had he done to warrant the Heavenly Secret Pavilion personally coming to Azure Cloud Sect, specifically to charge him with a crime? He quickly recalled his experiences during this trip, and could think of no action that had wronged the 9 sects, or violated the iron laws of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion. Shaking his head, he stopped overthinking. He had a clear conscience, and feared no interrogation or punishment from the Heavenly Secret Pavilion. He cupped his fists in salute to Feng Guchan and spoke bluntly, "Thank you for informing me, Great Elder. As for you putting in good words for me, this disciple dares not hope for such a thing. I would be overjoyed if you did not kick me when I am down." Hearing this, Wen Hongyao could not help but snort with laughter. Did Feng Guchan take Fang Chen for a fool? How did he have the nerve to say such things? Lai King Feng and Zhao Wuji also wore expressions of speechless exasperation. Feng Guchan had absolutely no shame. How could he utter such obvious lies that even he himself did not believe, claiming he had planned to speak well of Fang Chen? Just as Fang Chen had said, Feng Guchan refraining from kicking someone when they were down would be as absurd as the sun rising in the west. Feng Guchan had failed to threaten Fang Chen and had been mocked to boot, making him even more furious with shame. He stood up with a cold snort. Fine, when the Heavenly Secret Pavilion Commissioner arrives, we shall see if you can still laugh. Watching him storm off in a huff, Fang Chen turned to look at Liu Wenchen with a puzzled expression. Master, is this true? Liu Wenchen's expression also turned grave, and he asked, Did you commit any offense while at the Supreme Sect? If you did, tell me. Your master and the several elders will think of a way to resolve this for you. A giant question mark hung over Fang Chen's head, the Supreme Sect. In other places, he had made a few questionable missteps. For example, he had seen the Spirit Beast Sect Master's undergarment. He was wanted by the Pleasure Sect Master, and he had taken in Black Mirror Evil Spirit. But at the Supreme Sect alone, he had done nothing out of line. Master, this disciple only stayed at the Supreme Sect for half a day. During that time, I discussed the way of medicine with their disciples, exchanged a few bouts of martial arts, then collected the spiritual herbs required for my mission, and went to the Spirit Beast Sect. I did not make enemies with anyone from the sect. Hearing this, Liu Wenchen and the three elders wore confused expressions. Are you certain you have not left anything out? Liu Wenchen frowned and said, The Supreme Sect Master sent a letter of accusation reporting me to the Heavenly Secret Pavilion, and the content of the letter concerns you. Fang Chen was stunned. The Supreme Sect Master was related to him, but he had truly done nothing, and he had only caught a distant glimpse of the Supreme Sect Master once. They had no interaction whatsoever. For a moment, even Liu Wenchen could not make sense of it. The Supreme Sect Master would not have filed a report for no reason, but Fang Chen's expression did not look like he was feigning ignorance. Wen Hongyao was also extremely confused. Exchanging medical knowledge and sparring in martial arts are perfectly normal activities between disciples. You had no interaction with the Supreme Sect Master, let alone offended or disrespected him. This is truly strange. Did the Supreme Sect Master have nothing better to do than file a report to the Heavenly Secret Pavilion? Zhao Wuji gazed at Fang Chen and said thoughtfully, I believe Fang Chen is not lying. This must be some kind of misunderstanding. We know nothing of the content of the accusation letter, so guessing here is useless. It would be better to wait for the Heavenly Secret Pavilion Commissioner to summon us, then confront the matter face to face. As long as Fang Chen has a clear conscience, we have nothing to fear. The Heavenly Secret Pavilion Commissioner and his entourage had already arrived at Azure Cloud Sect long ago. They had waited a long time for Fang Chen to no avail, so they had entered seclusion. Now they could only notify him first, then wait for his arrangements. Liu Wenchen nodded slightly. That is the only way for now. Fang Chen, stay within the sect these few days and do not go anywhere. That commissioner may summon you at any time. Fang Chen nodded. Yes, master. The crowd quickly dispersed. Fang Chen followed behind the three elders as they departed the sect master's hall, pondering whether he should return to his cultivation abode first. Nai Yunxi, a disciple of Heavenly Sword Peak, had long been waiting anxiously outside the great hall. When she saw Lai Qingfeng emerge, she hurried forward and said, Master, something terrible has happened. Liu Ruyan is fighting with Liu Ruxu and Chen Xiling. You must hurry back to check on them. Lai Qingfeng felt a throbbing headache the moment he heard the news. This Liu Ruyan, why does she start causing trouble the second she returns? A flicker of joy appeared on Fang Chen's face as well. Ruxu and Xiling are back too. That is wonderful news. Lai Qingfeng was stunned for a moment, then could not help but slap his forehead. What was he getting a headache for? The person who truly ought to be worried was Fang Chen. With a hint of schadenfreude in his tone, he asked, Is their fight very intense? Nai Yunxi glanced at Fang Chen, and a trace of schadenfreude also rose in her. She nodded and said, Quite intense. Liu Ruyan somehow learned an Earth-grade sword art somewhere. Its power is astonishingly great. Her cultivation realm has also improved by a massive margin, reaching the 6th layer of the Foundation establishment realm. She is almost unrecognizable compared to before she left on her travels. What? Lai Qingfeng was taken aback. You did not see wrong. An Earth-grade sword art and 6th layer Foundation establishment realm cultivation. When Hongyao and Zhao Wuji could not help but widen their eyes. The jealousy on their faces was impossible to conceal no matter how hard they tried. Elder Lai, this disciple of yours must have encountered some great fortune, right? When Hongyao said in a sour tone. Zhao Wuji said jealously, It looks like, in all likelihood, just like Cao Zhen, she accidentally stumbled into some ancient cultivator's abode. Lai Qingfeng's face was glowing with pride. Now that Liu Ruyan had returned from her travels with drastically improved strength, he as her master also had immense face. But then his expression changed abruptly. Then would Liu Ruxu and Chen Xiling not be in danger? With Liu Ruyan's strength having improved so greatly, the other two women would probably be no match for her. Na Yingxi wore a strange expression as she said, "The two junior sisters are indeed at a disadvantage, but as for being in danger, that is not necessarily the case. Both of them have cultivated that mysterious sword art of junior brother Fang, and they have mastered it to a considerable degree, although their cultivation is a level lower than Liu Ruyan's. Relying on that sword art, they are able to hold their own and trade blows evenly with Liu Ruyan when fighting together." This left Wen Hongyao and Zhao Wuji completely flustered. Wen Hongyao said with a dark face, "Elder Lai, are you really not afraid of getting beaten up for hoarding all this talent?" Zhao Wuji's beard bristled as he glared. "You have so many outstanding disciples. Can you even train all of them on your own? My carefree peak can help you share the burden." Lai Qingfeng's eyes lit up immediately. He no longer had any time to gloat at Fang Chen's misfortune, and hurriedly said, "Come, come, come, we must hurry to stop them, if any of them gets injured. The loss will be immeasurable." In Lai Qingfeng's eyes, these three girls whose strength had almost undergone a complete qualitative transformation were as precious as fine porcelain, not to be bumped or scratched in the slightest. Na Yingxi was filled with bitterness. Once, she had been the only pride of her master, but now her three junior sisters had surpassed her and become the most beloved treasures in her master's heart. And all of this was thanks to two men. One was that mysterious Shadow Guard number 1, who had facilitated Liu Ruyan's complete transformation, and the other was Fang Chen, who had given the other two girls repeated opportunities to be reborn and remade. Thinking of this, she could not help but glance at Fang Chen, a sour taste filling her heart. "Junior brother Fang, are you not going to take a look? Your two beloved wives are currently at a disadvantage." She suddenly grew a little expectant. Would the woman favored by Shadow Guard number 1 prove to be more skillful, or would the two beloved wives of Fang Chen be more powerful? Fang Chen smiled bitterly. The strength of all three women had been raised by his own hand, and he never expected that the moment the three met, they would begin fighting each other using the cultivation methods he had taught them. Not daring to delay, Fang Chen hurried to the front of the Heavenly Sword, Peak Sect Master's Hall, and sure enough, he saw three exquisitely graceful silhouettes darting back and forth like butterflies flitting through flowers, the clear ringing of their swords rising and falling without pause. It was none other than Liu Ruyan, clad in a cyan long dress, wielding a long sword as she fought fiercely against Liu Ruxu and Chen Xiling. In merely 10 days apart, she had already grasped the rudiments of the illusion-shattering sword scripture. The moment she thrust her long sword forward, several half-real, half-illusory sword shadows followed in its wake, making her moves nigh impossible to defend against. Liu Ruxu, clad in a pale yellow round, collared short jacket with front opening, was dripping with fine sweat as she executed the sword heart engraving secret technique, struggling to fend off Liu Ruyan's sword techniques. In barely a month apart, her cultivation had actually broken through from the 4th layer of Foundation Establishment Realm to the 5th layer. What shocked Fang Chen even more was that her sword heart engraving had already reached the 2nd layer, sun rising over the vast sea. This was an Earth-grade cultivation method, and attaining such a height in just over a month was truly astounding. Fighting shoulder to shoulder with her was Chen Xiling, dressed in a dazzling blue long skirt. As graceful and vivid as a delicate blooming flower, she moved with incredible agility, coordinating with Liu Ruxu to jointly resist Liu Ruyan. Her cultivation had also broken through from the initial 3rd layer of Foundation Establishment Realm to the 4th layer, and she had also grasped the 2nd layer of sword heart engraving, even wielding it more proficiently than Liu Ruxu. This left Fang Chen incredulous. Could Chen Xiling truly possess an innate talent for the sword path? When he first imparted the sword art to the two young women, Chen Xiling had already made noticeably faster progress than Liu Ruxu. However, although the two women's sword techniques were far superior to Liu Ruyan's, the vast gap in their cultivation realms left them at a slight disadvantage, struggling desperately to hold their ground. Even so, when Lai Qingfeng shouted at them to cease fighting from the sidelines, the two women showed no intention of stopping, continuing their fierce entanglement with Liu Ruyan. Liu Ruyan was also brimming with fighting intent, with no intention of halting her attacks at all. As victory seemed within her grasp, her strikes grew even more ferocious and swift. It was not until Fang Chen spoke, "All of you, stop," that the three young women trembled in unison, stopping their movements, entirely as if compelled by an invisible force. The moment Liu Ruyan recognized Fang Chen's voice, an inexplicable fluster rose in her heart. She quickly sheathed her sword, smoothed her disheveled hair, and gazed at Fang Chen with bright, sparkling eyes, like a child waiting to be praised, her gaze brimming with both longing and anticipation. Fang Chen had just opened his mouth to greet them when Liu Ruxu and Chen Xiling let out surprised cries, throwing themselves into his arms as they exclaimed, "Xiao Chen, you're back too." Brilliant light flickered repeatedly in Liu Ruxu's beautiful eyes, unhidden joy flooding her peerless, ethereal face. Chen Xiling, on the other hand, looked Fang Chen up and down with a faint blush on her face, asking with concern, "Husband, you didn't run into any danger during these days away, did you?" Fang Chen patted the two women's delicate, slender shoulders that felt as if they could be wrapped entirely in a single hand, saying, "I'm fine. It's the two of you whose progress is so fast, it shocks me." Setting their cultivation breakthroughs aside for the moment, the speed of their progress in sword art completely exceeded Fang Chen's expectations. Liu Ruxu glanced gratefully at Chen Xiling, saying, "It was Xiling who found a natural heavenly treasure, allowing both of our cultivation to break through one entire layer. What's more, she was one who taught me my sword skills." Fang Chen looked at Chen Xiling in surprise, asking, "You actually have such a high level of comprehension for sword arts?" Chen Xiling's gaze flickered away for a moment. How could she have such extraordinary comprehension? Everything she knew was taught to her by the Moon Venerable residing inside her body. The reason their cultivation could improve was also because the Moon Venerable had guided her to find an extremely hidden natural heavenly treasure, and had even warned her to avoid multiple dangers along the way. "Husband is too kind with his praise," Chen Xiling said with an awkward expression. She did not want to tell Fang Chen that the innate fetal spirit inside her was the reincarnation of a powerful existence called the Moon Venerable, who had achieved reincarnation via soldier release, but the Moon Venerable had threatened to kill Fang Chen if she dared to reveal this secret, leaving her caught in a terrible dilemma. "Xiling, are you all right?" Fang Chen asked suspiciously. He had a feeling something was off with Chen Xiling, who looked thoroughly guilty, as if she was hiding a secret and was terrified he would see through it. Chen Xiling's heart skipped a beat, and she replied in a flustered tone, "No, I'm fine. It's Liu Ruyan who's the problem." In order to distract Fang Chen's attention, Chen Xiling quickly changed the subject, furrowing her delicate brows as she stared at Liu Ruyan, and said, "In just a short while, she has broken through from the 3rd layer of foundation, establishment realm to the 6th layer, and also cultivated a strange sword art. She says it was a gift of opportunity from an old acquaintance. I don't know where that meddling bastard acquaintance came from, teaching her to be so powerful." The more she spoke, the angrier she became. When they had separated from Liu Ruyan last time, Liu Ruyan had been easily suppressed by Liu Ruxu. In such a short time, she could actually take on both of them at once, suppressing the combined attacks of Liu Ruxu and herself. Even with the Moon Venerable helping her, her own strength had not improved this fast. What in the world was going on, that bastard? Fang Chen coughed dryly, saying, "She has an expert helping her, but don't you have me?" He immediately took out a portion of Dragon Pattern Vine Spirit Liquid and handed it to her, saying, "This is a spirit liquid that can directly raise the cultivation of a mid-stage foundation establishment realm cultivator by one entire layer." What? Chen Xiling's eyes lit up, and she took it over with delight. She trusted Fang Chen unconditionally. If he said it could raise a mid-stage foundation establishment realm cultivator by one layer, it was definitely true. However, she very obediently handed it to Liu Ruxu, saying, "Elder sister, you drink it first. How could a concubine like me take a share before the official wife has tasted it?" Liu Ruxu did not take it, glancing at Fang Chen as she said, "You drink it first. Does Xiao Chen look like someone who would skimp on giving me my share later?" Fang Chen could not help but laugh and cry at the same time, wondering why he was being dragged into this. He immediately took out another portion of Dragon Pattern Vine Spirit Liquid, saying, "This one is for Ruxu." Liu Ruxu curved her beautiful eyes, accepted the item with a smile, and examined it as she spoke. Is this treasure truly so miraculous? Once one reaches the mid-foundation establishment realm, breakthroughs are far less easy than in the early stage. One either spends long hours meditating in cultivation, or consumes rare heavenly treasures and earthly marvels. "You will know once you try it," Fang Chen said with a laugh. Liu Ruxu and Chen Xiling adopted a half-believing, half-doubting attitude, sat cross-legged on the spot, and swallowed the spirit liquid. Soon as the effect of the spirit liquid took hold, their cultivations at the 4th and 5th layers of foundation establishment surged at a speed visible to the naked eye. In merely the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, both of them had broken through an entire realm. Feeling the power of her new 5th layer foundation establishment realm, Chen Xiling exclaimed excitedly, "Thank you, husband. At the 5th layer of foundation establishment, I am already the strongest expert in all of Guzhou City. I have only been in Qingyun Sect for a few months, yet I have achieved such an astonishing transformation. Being with Fang Chen is truly the greatest fortune of my life." A brilliant light also flickered in Liu Ruxu's eyes, as she asked somewhat sheepishly, Cao Zhen. This kind of spirit liquid must be extremely precious, right? She always relied on Fang Chen to make breakthroughs, which gave her the feeling that she was holding him back. Fang Chen held the hands of both women and said, "You are my women, why stand on ceremony? If I did not have these things, that is one matter, but if I do, it is only right that you have your share." Nai Yunxi and several other female disciples felt an oppressive weight that left them breathless. As veteran disciples, they had cultivated painstakingly for several years to reach their current cultivation levels, but what of Liu Ruxu and Chen Xiling? Under Fang Chen's care, they had easily surpassed the majority of veteran disciples. Nai Yunxi said sourly, "The two of them truly have good fates to have run into such a wonderful man." Immediately after, she could not help but glance toward Liu Ruyan. As Fang Chen's former official fiancé, her mood was undoubtedly the most complicated. Looking at Chen Xiling and Liu Ruxu, who were at the 5th and 6th layers of Foundation establishment, respectively, it must be a lie if Liu Ruyan claimed she felt no regret. As expected, Liu Ruyan was currently staring at Fang Chen with a hint of resentment in her gaze. She had finally made great progress in her strength, and was ready to avenge her former humiliation by defeating the two women, when Fang Chen suddenly returned, and even helped them raise their cultivation on the spot. The gap between their cultivation realms had now been completely closed. If they fought again, her chances of defeat were far higher than her chances of victory. "Fang Chen, could you not have come a little later?" Liu Ruyan had intended to scold Fang Chen, but when the words reached her lips, they lost all their sharpness, instead sounding like ordinary, casual conversation. Only then did Fang Chen look toward Liu Ruyan and said calmly, "Spend more effort on your cultivation. Why do you keep picking trouble with Chen Xiling?" He did not need to ask to know why the three of them were fighting in the first place. More likely than not, she had run into Chen Xiling and started making things difficult for her again, and when Liu Ruxu saw Chen Xiling at a disadvantage, she had stepped in to help Chen Xiling fight her off. For some reason, Liu Ruyan had always disliked Chen Xiling greatly, yet there was no real conflict between the two of them. He truly could not understand it. Liu Ruyan's red lips moved as she wanted to speak but held back, certain words too difficult for her to voice out loud. Only Liu Ruxu understood her younger sister's state of mind. After losing her position as Fang Chen's official fiancée, she had already been ill at ease. Later, when she realized she was even inferior to Chen Xiling, it was only natural that her anger would be hard to quell. "Zhao Chen, someone must have given Ruyan guidance outside the sect. I worry that this person has ill intentions toward her." "What kind of person would be so kind as to give such great help for no reason? They must be plotting something, surely." Gazing at Liu Ruyan's delicate, pretty face and graceful, lithe figure, Liu Ruxu spoke with undisguised worry. "Do you have any more dragon pattern vine spirit liquid? Give her a share as well. In the future, if you have extra resources, set aside a portion for her too. If you really do not have enough, you can take half from my share. That way, she will not be trapped by that person and end up being deceived and hurt." Upon hearing this, Liu Ruyan resisted awkwardly. "I don't want it," but her red lips were slightly pressed together, and her two small hands fidgeted restlessly as if she did not know where to put them. She had thought more than once how nice it would be to receive Fang Chen's favor like her elder sister and Chen Xiling, but with her personality, she would never be able to bring herself to say such a thing. Liu Ruxu's proposal made her breath catch, her heart thumping wildly like a small deer ramming against her chest. Her two ears perked up quietly as she waited for Fang Chen's response, both nervous and afraid. A vein twitched on Fang Chen's forehead. What could I possibly want from Liu Ruyan? "I only look after her along the way because she is your younger sister, and because Lai Qingfeng told me to take care of the Zingli family, nothing more." After a moment of contemplation, he shook his head slightly and said, "I do have 2 more portions of Dragon Pattern Vine Spirit Liquid, but it only works for those in the mid-foundation establishment realm. Liu Ruyan is at the 6th layer of Foundation establishment, so consuming it would be of little use. As for resources in the future, we can talk about that when the time comes." He did not dare to make a guarantee that he would always be lucky enough to obtain enough cultivation resources for 3 people. It was already quite difficult to satisfy both Liu Ruxu and Chen Xiling at the same time. This was a perfectly normal statement, but in front of all the disciples of Heavenly Sword Peak, Liu Ruyan felt as if she had been publicly rejected and was utterly humiliated. A layer of mist quickly gathered in her previously expectant eyes. She glared at Fang Chen resentfully, gritted her teeth through her tears, and said, "I do not care for your resources at all. Focus on protecting your 2 wives. I can handle my own matters. There is no need for you to concern yourself with me." With that, she grabbed her sword, turned around, and ran away. Liu Ruxu grew anxious and rolled her eyes at Fang Chen in exasperation. Could you not have said something nicer? Did you have to embarrass her like that? Chen Xiling let out a bitter laugh, glanced around at the gazes of the numerous disciples, and said, "This is not the place to talk. Let us go back to my cave abode. I brought back a great many heavenly treasures and earthly marvels. We can talk while we eat." Fang Chen had no objections to this. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, and the three of them talked happily in the cave abode, each sharing their respective experiences from their time apart. Chen Xiling had thought that her and Liu Ruxu's experiences were exciting enough, but after hearing what Fang Chen had gone through, she and Liu Ruxu were stunned. He had actually even offended the daughter of the Demon Emperor, which made their scalps tingle. If word got out, who would believe that this was a logistics mission? It was simply more dangerous than fighting on the front lines. Fang Chen smiled and said, "That little demoness will not dare to step foot into the territory of the 9 sects again for a good while." As he spoke, he quietly took out the heaven-shaking bow and handed it to Liu Ruxu. "This is a top-grade magical artifact. Its power is immense. I am giving it to you as a trump card. Do not show it to others lightly." Liu Ruxu was greatly shocked. "A top-grade magical artifact? How can I accept this? Zhao Chen, you face far more dangers. You should keep it for yourself to use." Fang Chen pushed it into Liu Ruxu's arms and said, "I have too many magical artifacts on me. This one has become a burden instead. Your cultivation is weaker, so it is most suitable for you to use it. Practice your archery more when you have the chance." A strange light flickered in Liu Ruxu's beautiful eyes as she felt the heavy weight in her arms and sighed softly. "Zhao Chen's treatment of me is truly beyond reproach." Chen Xiling watched with eyes full of envy. This was a top-grade magical artifact, the highest tier in the entire 9 sects lands, and he had just given it to Liu Ruxu just like that. "Xiling, you have one too." Fang Chen reached into his bosom and rummaged. Chen Xiling's bright, lively eyes immediately widened, her heart surging with wild excitement. She was actually getting a gift as well. Could it be another top-grade magical artifact? But when Fang Chen pulled the item out, her expression instantly froze. The object he had retrieved from his bosom was none other than a red silk undergarment, and it was not even brand new. Clear signs of prior wear were visible on its fabric. Not only did Chen Xiling look extremely awkward, even Liu Ruxu could not stand the sight. She chided, "How can you give an undergarment as a gift to Xiling, especially one that someone else has worn? This is far too absurd." Fang Chen smiled faintly and said, "This is no ordinary undergarment." Liu Ruxu would not hear of it and said displeasedly, "No matter what it is, you cannot give Xiling something that another woman has worn. Is this not an insult to her?" Seeing that the two were on the verge of arguing, Chen Xiling quickly snatched the undergarment from Fang Chen's hand and said with a bright smile, "Anything my husband gives me is certainly no ordinary item. Besides, the style and size fit me perfectly." Her cheeks flushed slightly as she tucked it into her sleeve. Liu Ruxu frowned and said, "Xiling, don't force yourself. Giving this undergarment as a gift is worse than giving nothing at all." Chen Xiling smiled as she poured her a cup of tea, saying, "Calm down, elder sister. My husband has already helped me so much. Even if he gave me nothing at all, I would still be full of gratitude. What right do I have to blame him?" Come now, everyone, have some spirit fruit. With her efforts to lighten the mood, the tense atmosphere gradually eased again. It was not until deep in the night that Fang Chen and Liu Ruxu took their leave and departed. Left alone, Chen Xiling tidied up the table quickly, then gazed at the now empty cave abode, and a sudden wave of desolation washed over her. She murmured, softly, "If only there were more days like this." At that moment, a yawning voice sounded in her mind, "How has your cultivation reached the 5th layer of the Foundation establishment realm?" It was none other than Moon Venerable, the reincarnated soul of a cultivator who had undergone soldier dissolution, residing within her body. Ever since Chen Xiling had returned safely to Qingyun Sect, she had relaxed her mind and fallen into a deep slumber. Yet in such a short span of time, Chen Xiling's cultivation realm had actually skyrocketed by an entire level. "It's the spirit liquid my husband gave me," Chen Xiling said with no small amount of pride. "You always say he isn't good enough for me, but look, isn't he wonderful to me? How many senior sisters are so jealous their eyes are turning red?" Moon Venerable curled her lip. "You're this happy just from raising one small cultivation level. If you listened to me and traveled far to the outer domain, your gains would be far greater than this." Though she said that out loud, she was actually quite surprised in her heart. Under her personal guidance, she had only managed to raise Chen Xiling from the 3rd layer to the 4th layer of the Foundation establishment realm. Yet after Fang Chen came back from a trip outside, he had also managed to raise her by an entire level. This brat's luck is really quite good, she thought. Most importantly, he was not stingy towards Chen Xiling. You're just saying one thing and meaning the opposite. Chen Xiling was already used to Moon Venerable's temperament. More often than not, the right way to take her words was to understand the opposite of what she said. My husband has given us so much. He even gave elder sister a bow from the demon clan. Guess how high its rank is? Top grade magical artifact. Moon Venerable looked shocked. From what I have observed of this land, the highest rank of artifacts available is only top grade magical artifact. He was actually willing to give such a precious item to Liu Ruxu. I have underestimated him. Even though she had always disliked Fang Chen, that so-called husband of Chen Xiling's, even she had to admit now that this brat treated his women impeccably, with nothing to fault. But seeing the smug look on Chen Xiling's face, she felt reluctant to admit defeat, and said, he only gave something to the main wife. You, the concubine, got nothing at all. This made Chen Xiling's expression freeze slightly. She said guiltily, oh, of course I got something. Fang Chen is very good to me too. Hearing the guilt in her voice, Moon Venerable said in a teasing tone, oh really? Take it out and let me see. Show me how much your beloved husband values his little concubine. Chen Xiling hesitated for a moment, knowing she could not hide it from Moon Venerable. Finally, she let out a helpless, soft sigh. Fang Chen did give me a gift, it's just, I don't know what to say about it. She pulled that red silk undergarment out of her sleeve, a hint of resistance in her expression. She murmured softly, I would rather he gifted me an ordinary new doo-doo, even if it was woven from common material. I would have worn it happily close to my skin, but this one has been worn by another. How can I possibly use it? I truly cannot fathom what my husband was thinking. She stared at the doo-doo, unsure how to deal with it. If she threw it away, it was a gift from Fang Chen. If she wore it, it was a personal intimate item that had belonged to another woman. She simply could not bring herself to put it on. Besides, the Moon Sovereign would surely mock her for her low status as a concubine, would he not? But after waiting for a long while, there was still no sound from the Moon Sovereign. She could not help but ask in confusion, are you asleep? Only then did the Moon Sovereign speak, his tone laced with complex emotion. Fang Chen is truly unbelievably good to you. He even gifted you such a treasure. Your title as a concubine is hardly fitting for the treatment you receive. Chen Xiling blinked, her gaze falling back on the old doo-doo before her. You say this is a treasure? She turned it over and examined it repeatedly, but could not discern anything special about it. The Moon Sovereign nodded slightly. This doo-doo is woven from the silk of the moon-gazing ancient silkworm. It is one of the finest defensive magical artifacts below the Soul Formation realm. You would be hard-pressed to find a second one across the entire 9-sect continent. Its value is far higher than that of the heaven-shaking bow. Chen Xiling's eyes went wide with shock. This doo-doo has such an impressive origin. She was stunned that this unassuming little garment was actually such a powerful defensive magical artifact. Immediately, her eyes lit up sparkling bright, filled with indescribable excitement. I knew it. How could my husband gift me a doo-doo worn by someone else? It turns out it is such a powerful defensive magical artifact. Even if I am titled a concubine, my husband has never treated me as one. A tinge of warm, deep emotion glistened in her eyes. The Moon Sovereign rubbed his forehead with a sigh. TCH, I should not have told you. Look at you, completely love-struck. You will be even less willing to leave him now. Chen Xiling smiled brightly as she held the doo-doo up to her chest to check the size, looking perfectly delighted. HMPH, I will never leave my husband, not for my entire life. Now turning to Fang Chen, after he escorted Liu Ruxu back to her cave abode, he descended Heavenly Sword Peak alone. Treading through the moonlight, he traveled toward the Sect Master Peak. As he passed the main square, a faint afterimage flashed across his peripheral vision. He swept his gaze over and spotted a figure clad in black darting over at extreme speed from the direction of the medicinal herb garden. The moment the figure's toes touched the ground, they tapped lightly and leapt a full 8 to 9 zhang into the distance, clearly employing an exceptionally advanced movement technique. Fang Chen was puzzled. No one in Qingyun Sect possessed such a high-tier movement technique, and this person was coming from the medicinal herb garden, a restricted core area of Qingyun Sect. Could this be an outsider from another sect, here to steal the heaven and earth spiritual treasures growing in the garden? He immediately went on high alert and called out in a loud, clear voice, "Who goes there? What business do you have on Qingyun Sect grounds?" Ryuan Qingsu frowned slightly. She had come to Qingyun Sect with her master to handle the report filed by the Supreme Sect Master. Her master was in seclusion, and with nothing else to do, she had come out to practice her movement technique when the night was quiet and no one was around. Suddenly, being shouted at like that, her face twisted with displeasure. Mind your own business. She had been practicing her movement technique at night for several days already, and everyone in Qingyun Sect should be aware of it. Where did this rude Qingyun Sect disciple even come from? Fang Chen's face darkened. This person was sneaking around Qingyun Sect, and even dared to snap at him for minding his own business. If this person did not explain themselves clearly, they would not be leaving alive. Whoosh, he tapped his toes against the ground, immediately activating his movement technique, and darted toward her at a shocking speed. Yuan Qingsu was taken aback and cried out softly, "What an incredible movement technique! How is it even stronger than mine?" She was just about to reveal her identity when a thought crossed her mind. She had not managed to break through her movement technique bottleneck in a long time. If she had someone to spar with, would she be able to improve faster? With that thought, she concealed her identity and put on an arrogant, taunting tone. "What is there to explain? I am obviously here to steal things from your sect. Catch me first, if you have the ability." She was at the second layer of the Golden Core realm. After all, even if this person caught up to her, what could he possibly do to her? Little did she know, she had run into the worst possible person she could have encountered in the entire sect. Insolent, Fang Chen laughed in anger. He had seen audacious people before, but never someone so arrogant and disrespectful. This was the first thief he had ever met that was still so cocky after being caught red-handed. "Then you are not leaving." His voice still hung in the air, but Fang Chen had already darted forward at a staggering speed. Yuan Qingsu was overjoyed rather than worried. The corner of her lips curled up as she spoke. "Empty boasts will never hold me." Immediately, she activated her movement technique and darted away at high speed. She cultivated the mid-earth rank movement technique * shift form, swap shadow *, a treasured collection of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion. It is said that when mastered to its pinnacle, it boasts a miraculous effect akin to shrinking the earth into an inch. Though she has only cultivated to the first layer so far, she has already attained an astonishing speed of 8 zhang per step. Furthermore, when the movement technique is activated, a string of phantoms will appear and scatter in all directions. For a short window of time, it is utterly impossible to distinguish the real body from the false phantoms, making it exceptionally difficult to catch up to her. Fang Chen was also stunned. This was the first time he had witnessed such a bizarre movement technique that came innate with enemy, confusing phantoms. It was far more effective than ordinary movement techniques, whether used for fleeing or combat. This female thief had cultivated her movement technique to a remarkably impressive level. Even Fang Chen felt a faint twinge of envy for this technique. These phantoms might be a crippling headache for others, but they were hardly an obstacle for Fang Chen. He condensed spiritual power on his 2 fingers and swiped them across his eyes, instantly activating the Kai observation technique derived from the Undying Medical Canon *. This technique was originally designed to help physicians see through a patient's internal organs and detect deep-seated pathologies, but it was perfectly suited for use in this ongoing battle. For phantoms could never possess internal organs, after all. As the Kai observation technique took effect in Fang Chen's field of vision, all the phantoms were empty inside. Only the figure fleeing eastward had clearly visible, functioning internal organs. "I fear you will not be escaping today." He immediately activated his own movement technique and gave chase at top speed. She had been wearing a playful smirk, ready to enjoy the spectacle of Fang Chen pouncing wildly at the phantoms like a headless fly, when her countenance abruptly shifted. For Fang Chen was ignoring all the phantoms along his path and charging straight for her. No way did he actually locate my real body. Yuan Qingsu could barely believe her eyes. She activated her movement technique once more and fled further into the distance, scattering countless near-lifelike phantoms along her path that made it impossible for any ordinary cultivator to tell which was the real Yuan Qingsu. Yet to her profound shock, Fang Chen still locked onto her position with unerring accuracy, rapidly closing the gap between them. The moment she was on the verge of being caught, Yuan Qingsu was fully confirmed that her phantoms were completely useless against Fang Chen. She cried out in shock, "You can see through my real body." Fang Chen's gaze turned slightly cold. Guess, he immediately struck out with a * roaming dragon palm * aimed directly at her shoulder blade. Yuan Qingsu raised an eyebrow. Seeing that it was only a high mystic rank palm technique, she dismissed it with disdain. "You think this paltry skill is enough to capture me?" * lotus burst from clear waters *. Her fair jade-like hand pierced through space at extreme speed, slamming squarely against Fang Chen's palm print. The domineering power of an Earth-rank cultivation method erupted in full force along with her strike. But the scene she had imagined, where she would send Fang Chen flying back with a single palm, never came to pass. On the contrary, an incredibly profound, heavy palm force matched her own strike evenly, leaving her greatly astonished. For an Earth-rank palm technique to fail to suppress a high Mystic rank one, only the most top-tier high Mystic rank cultivation methods could possibly boast such overwhelming power. Fang Chen was also somewhat surprised. Someone who commanded such an exquisite, high-grade cultivation method would actually stoop to being a petty thief. The move he had unleashed was Dragon Annihilation, the final form of roaming Dragon Palm, whose power was no less than that of a standard Earth rank technique. This woman could actually match him evenly, which confirmed that the technique she wielded was almost certainly an Earth rank cultivation method. He could not wrap his head around it. Those qualified to cultivate this level of technique were exceptionally rare even among the 9 sects, and should hold extremely lofty, noble status. There was no logical reason for her to act as a petty thief. Ryuan Kingsu laughed aloud. If I didn't become a thief, where would I get my hands on such powerful cultivation methods? Immediately, the power in her palm surged abruptly, and the full spiritual power of the second layer Golden Core Realm poured forth, sending Fang Chen staggering back. Fang Chen stabilized his figure, his eyes narrowing slightly. Surrender now, and I will grant you a chance to mend your ways. Otherwise, do not blame me for showing no mercy. Ryuan Kingsu reacted as if she had heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. She retorted, with your measly foundation establishment realm cultivation, you dare to threaten me with no mercy. Come then, let me see just how merciless you can be. She crooked her finger, a provocative smirk playing across her face. Fang Chen said no more. He channeled his full spiritual power and abruptly struck out with a finger. Asterisk regretful wrath of the dragon asterisk, the final form of the asterisk heavenly cripple finger asterisk, which possessed devastating power. This was a move whose raw power was no weaker than that of a mid-earth rank cultivation method. A brilliant, multicolored spot of light flickered brightly at the tip of his finger. The instant the light spot appeared, the space surrounding his fingertip emitted sharp crackling sounds and rippled violently, as if it was on the verge of being torn to shreds by the concentrated power of the light. Waves of menacing, dangerous aura billowed out in its wake. The smile on Yuan Kingsu's face froze abruptly. A look of sheer shock crossed her features. Earth grade finger technique. She realized Fang Chen was deadly serious. It seemed their little joke had gone too far. But for her, a dignified disciple of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion, to bow and apologize to someone from the Azure Cloud Sect. That was impossible. Who was afraid of him anyway? Ryuan Kingsu lifted her jade-like finger and actually unleashed an earth-grade finger technique of her own. As the finger technique shot forth, clusters of brilliant white lotus blossoms surged towards Fang Chen. Yet the earth-grade finger technique she cultivated was only at the first layer, so how could it possibly compare to the one Fang Chen had mastered to the third layer? As Fang Chen struck out with a single finger, the iridescent specks of light instantly morphed into a terrifying multicolored beam, like a rainbow piercing through the firmament. In the blink of an eye, it shattered all the lotuses in its path and slammed straight towards Yuan Kingsu. Ryuan Kingsu's countenance shifted drastically. Though both were earth-grade finger techniques, hers was actually utterly vulnerable to his strike. She frantically patted her chest, and a jade pendant hanging around her neck shattered, bursting forth streams of clear light that shielded her from behind. It was clearly a protective magical artifact. Boom! The multicolored beam slammed into the clear light barrier, as if sinking into a ball of cotton. It finally halted a mere foot in front of Yuan Kingsu, unable to advance even an inch further. As its spiritual energy dissipated, it vanished completely into nothingness. Ryuan Kingsu was drenched in cold sweat from fright. If not for this defensive magical artifact capable of blocking attacks from the 5th layer of the Golden Core Realm, she would have undoubtedly suffered severe injuries. At this thought, she glared at Fang Chen in mingled shame and anger. You made me waste a protective magical artifact. I'll play with you again next time. She turned on her heel to leave, immediately activating her movement technique, planning to escape this place first and deal with the rest later. Who would have thought Fang Chen's face was ice, gold as he spoke? Did I permit you to leave? The tip of his foot shifted, and he chased after her at a shocking speed. Seeing that Fang Chen had no intention of letting the matter rest, Yuan Kingsu was both furious and terrified. What more do you want? I already took the initiative to leave. For a disciple of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, taking the initiative to back down like this was already an enormous loss of face. And yet this person from the Azure Cloud Sect still refused to let the matter drop. I already gave you the chance to surrender without resistance. Lightning coiled around Fang Chen's legs as he quietly activated the 3 Pure Thunder Shadow Cultivation method. This leg technique was specifically designed to counter defensive measures. The light barrier before him was unlikely to be able to block it. Yuan Qingsu flew into a rage. Despicable, you think I'm spoiling you. Cloud-piercing finger. A finger technique far more powerful than the previous one was unleashed once more. The white lotuses had turned multicolored, and their power had increased by more than several times over. This was the second form of the Earth-grade finger technique, the trump card she was most proud of. For someone of her age to have cultivated an Earth-grade finger technique to the second layer was not unheard of, but it was definitely an exceedingly rare feat. There were very few people who could withstand this strike. Originally, she had kept this finger technique as a hidden trump card, planning to use it to surprise the powerful senior brothers and sisters of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. She never expected that she would be forced to use it here against someone from the insignificant Azure Cloud Sect. Countless multicolored lotuses burst into bloom as they surged forth, arriving before Fang Chen in an instant. Fang Chen's expression did not shift in the slightest as he roared in a low voice, "Thunder Dragon Lightning Leg." He struck out with both legs, thunder and lightning coiling around his limbs, roaring like 2 divine dragons. The domineering power of the lightning crushed all the oncoming multicolored lotuses into tiny fragments. The thunder dragons did not slow in the slightest as they followed through, slamming violently into the clear light barrier. What? Yuan Qingsu was stunned. Her most powerful strike had actually been destroyed by her opponent as easily as snapping dry twigs. What's more, that was Thunder Arts, the signature cultivation method of the Righteous Thunder Sect. How could it appear in the Azure Cloud Sect? Countless thoughts flashed through her mind in an instant. As thunder light flared abruptly, she finally made out her opponent's face in the darkness, and was instantly shocked to see the features of an 18-year-old youth. How is this possible? She had always assumed she was fighting some veteran disciple of the Azure Cloud Sect who had spent decades in cultivation, never imagining her foe was a barely matured youth. Her mind was thrown into complete disarray. Who was this person? When had the Azure Cloud Sect gained such a monstrously talented young disciple? Furious and humiliated at being forced to retreat step by step by a mere junior disciple, she snapped, "That's enough, boy. Don't think you're invincible just because you learned a few powerful cultivation techniques. Be careful not to get severely injured by the rebound force of my defensive barrier." She gazed unflinchingly at his approaching legs. This barrier could easily withstand a full strike from a 5th-layer Golden Core Realm expert. What could a mere youth, relying only on some fancy cultivation methods, possibly do to her? The very next moment, her face twisted in horror. Fang Chen stomped 1 foot down on the barrier, and the clear, misty radiance immediately surged with a fierce counterattack, attempting to rebound the full force of his kick back at him. However, the thunder coiled around Fang Chen's legs, slammed into the barrier with the roar of a thunder dragon, and the supposedly indestructible barrier was instantly melted through by the destructive power of the lightning. With a sharp pop, as if a balloon had suddenly burst, the barrier shattered on impact. Fang Chen's feet then stomped mercilessly toward Yuan Qingsu's chest. By the time Yuan Qingsu reacted, she only had time to lift both arms to shield her chest. Boom! With a dull, heavy thud, Yuan Qingsu was sent flying backward by the force of the kick. The immense force sent her blood and Kai surging in both arms, left her chest tight and suffocated, and a coppery, sweet taste of blood rose to her throat. She was sent flying more than 3 zhang backward, and only stabilized her form in a rather disheveled state. Furious and humiliated, she snarled, "Why are you attacking with such vicious force?" Fang Chen landed on the ground, his hands clasped behind his back as he said coldly, "Was it not you who said you would stay to see my true strength? Now that I am fighting seriously, do not expect me to hold back." Whoosh! He transformed into a blurry afterimage and shot forward like a thunderbolt. Yuan Qingsu's pupils constricted sharply, her scalp prickling with dread as she cried out, "Stop! Stop right now! I am Yuan Qingsu, a disciple of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. I was only joking with you earlier." The moment the words left her mouth, her pretty face flushed bright red. She had actually been forced to beg for mercy from a junior disciple of the Azure Cloud Sect. If word of this got back to the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, she would never be able to show her face again. Fang Chen nodded. "So you are a senior sister from the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion." Just as Yuan Qingsu assumed the matter was coming to an end, Fang Chen suddenly unleashed the Overdragon Regret Strike, an immensely powerful multicolored beam of energy that instantly pierced through her shoulder armor, spraying a shower of blood into the air. Caught completely off guard, Yuan Qingsu let out a shriek of agony, crying out in pain, "What are you doing?" Fang Chen's face remained cold and impassive. Would a member of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion ever claim to be a thief? "Do you take me for a 3-year old child?" As he spoke, he struck out with another wandering dragon palm. Yuan Qingsu forced herself to endure the pain and met his palm strike, only to be sent flying once more by the force, slamming heavily into the ground. Already grievously wounded from successive blows, she could no longer hold back, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Seeing Fang Chen about to strike again, she spoke hastily. "I truly am a disciple of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion." Fang Chen responded coldly, then surrendered peacefully. "I will naturally bring you before the sect master to await judgment." Yuan Qingsu bit her pearlescent teeth lightly and retorted, "Over my dead body? What a joke!" If a dignified disciple of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion was captured as a female thief and dragged publicly before the Qingyun Sect master, her reputation would be utterly ruined once word got out. She would rather die than suffer such humiliation. Fang Chen scoffed, "Just as I suspected, you are a thief. You dare to impersonate a disciple of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. I will not spare you." He immediately struck out with a palm. Shamed and enraged, Yuan Qingsu flipped her hand and pulled out several iron spheres, hurling them directly at Fang Chen. Fang Chen's expression shifted. He fired off several bursts of finger force in quick succession, slamming into the oncoming iron spheres. Boom, 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 the iron spheres detonated violently on the spot, seizing the opportunity while Fang Chen was blocked. Yuan Qingsu turned and fled at once. As she ran, she glanced back over her shoulder and snarled, "Brat, this isn't over between us." Seeing the distance widen between them, Fang Chen's eyes turned icy. He decisively unslung the long jade case from his back and drew out a top-grade magical artifact Guchan. He plucked the strings with 5 fingers, and terrifying sound waves swept forward with an unstoppable, crushing force. In an instant, the fleeing Yuan Qingsu was struck by the formidable sound waves, which tore her robes apart to expose large swaths of skin, while deep, gory lacerations that split her flesh open were carved across her back. Yuan Qingsu let out a shriek of pain and collapsed to the ground. "How do you even know sound path cultivation methods? Isn't this the exclusive secret technique of the Heavenly Sound Sect? What kind of monster have I run into? I can't defeat you, and I can't escape you either." Fang Chen put away the Guchan, flashed over to her, and huffed coldly. "If you had surrendered earlier, you would not have had to suffer so much." Yuan Qingsu ground her teeth and snarled, "In your dreams?" Watching Fang Chen approach rapidly, she pulled out a fist, sized silver, white orb with visible reluctance, and slammed it hard against the ground. With a loud crack, the orb shattered, and thick white mist spread out in a single breath, shrouding the entire surrounding area. Even when Fang Chen channeled spiritual power to enhance his vision, he could not see anything beyond 3 zhang ahead. The injured Yuan Qingsu quickly vanished into the mist, leaving no trace behind. He narrowed his eyes, perked up his ears discreetly, and listened carefully to every sound around him. A moment later, the faint sound of a snapping tree branch reached his ears. He drew his sword without hesitation, rubbing his palms together, and the morning frost sword spun at high speed between his 2 hands. At the same time, spiritual power coursed through his body like a sharp sword. He had clearly activated his sword heart. A sharp, deafening sound of tearing air ripped through the sky. The next moment, a terrified shriek rang out from within the mist. "Why, you know sword control as well. Who exactly are you?" Fang Chen's gaze sharpened, and he flashed towards the source of the sound, only to find a pool of fresh blood left on the ground. Its owner was long gone. By the time the mist dispersed, there was no sign of the female thief anywhere. Fang Chen retrieved the morning frost sword, feeling rather exasperated. She still managed to escape after all that. All that effort was for nothing. Yet, though the sword kinesis technique failed to kill her, it left her gravely wounded. Otherwise, she would not have lost so much blood. She would surely not dare to sneak into the Qingyun Sect to steal again. With that thought, he sheathed his sword and returned to his cave abode as if nothing had transpired. Little did he know that in the rear mountains of the Qingyun Sect, Yuan Qingsu was clutching her profusely bleeding abdomen as she stumbled and collapsed in front of a hastily opened cave abode. She pounded feebly on the stone gate, calling out weakly, "Master." A moment later, the stone gate rumbled open. A palace-robed woman appearing to be in her 40s, exceptionally well preserved, dignified and elegant in bearing yet with an icy cold countenance, stepped out with clear displeasure on her face. Did I not tell you that I am at the critical juncture of seclusion, and you are not to disturb me unless it is of utmost importance? Mid-sentence, she was startled by Yuan Qingsu's injuries and cried out in shock, "How did you get wounded so badly?" Yuan Qingsu's tears of grievance flowed uncontrollably, and she dissolved into sobs in an instant. "Why, master, someone bullied me, why?" The palace-robed woman was immediately filled with concern and hurried to embrace her. Yuan Qingsu was ordinarily such a proud disciple. She would not even furrow her brow if she lost a chunk of flesh. For her to be weeping so piteously now spoke volumes of the immense grievance she had suffered. The palace-robed woman examined her closely, only to discover traces of blood at the corner of her mouth, a pierced shoulder, and most horrifying of all, a gaping bloodied hole in her abdomen left by a sword thrust. Her face paled drastically in fright. She quickly took out a treasured top-grade healing medicinal pill and fed it to Yuan Qingsu. Only then did a sliver of color return to Yuan Qingsu's deathly pale face. "Who did this to dare inflict such vicious harm on you?" the palace-robed woman barked, her face icy with fury. Yet Yuan Qingsu could not bring herself to speak of it, for her grievance stemmed not from her physical injuries, but from the blow to her pride. Thus she bit her red lip lightly, too ashamed to recount what had happened, and said, "Forget it, master. I was in the wrong first. Let this be a lesson learned." If she had not taunted the other party and caused a misunderstanding, none of this would have ever come to pass. The palace-robed woman raised her voice and snapped coldly, "Stop hiding things. That person dared to injure my disciple so severely. He clearly holds no regard for me, Lin Yuheng. This is no longer just your affair." In her mind, who else could have attacked Yuan Qingsu within the bounds of the Qingyun Sect? It could only be a member of the Qingyun Sect. Given how badly Yuan Qingsu was wounded, Qingyun Sect disciples could be ruled out immediately. The attacker was either a peak elder or one of the deacons who stepped down from their positions as senior disciples, or someone of similar standing. Yuan Qingsu's body trembled. Sensing her master's fury, she knew she could not hide the truth any longer, and said with burning cheeks, It was a young man." Lin Yu Heng's expression froze, and she asked in confusion, "Are you not mistaken? What young man could be powerful enough to beat the disciple I have painstakingly trained to such a state?" Heavenly Secret Pavilion does have a few freaks of that caliber, but this is the Qingyun Sect, the weakest of the 9 great sects. Yuan Qingsu smiled bitterly. "Disciple is not mistaken. It was indeed a young man. I do not grieve over my injuries, but over the fact that I have failed your years of guidance, and was thoroughly taught a lesson by an unknown young man." Lin Yuheng was greatly shocked, and said, "Tell me every single detail of what happened, from start to finish." Thus Yuan Qingsu could only brace herself and recount the entire humiliating episode in full detail. Impossible. After hearing Yuan Qingsu's account, Lin Yuheng flatly rejected it, even suspecting for a moment that Qingsu was speaking in delirium. He is only 18 years old, yet he is proficient in Earth-grade palm techniques, Earth-grade finger techniques, Earth-grade leg techniques, and Earth-grade sound path cultivation methods. He wears Qingyun Sect attire, yet he concurrently cultivates True Thunder Sect and Heavenly Sound Sect cultivation methods. He is only at the Foundation establishment realm, yet he shattered the defenses of the protective jade pendant I gifted you, and you claim he can control his sword to strike enemies from afar. Do you even believe what you are saying? A person's energy is finite. To even master a single Earth-grade cultivation method to a decent level is already an extraordinary feat. To cultivate 4 Earth-grade cultivation methods simultaneously sounds utterly absurd. The rest is even more preposterous, cultivating both True Thunder Sect and Heavenly Sound Sect cultivation methods at the same time. How could that be possible? Even more outrageous is the claim that someone at the Foundation establishment realm can pierce through the defense of a golden core 5th layer cultivator. Is there even the slightest chance of that? Fine, let us set all that aside for a moment. Controlling a sword to strike from afar isn't that Zhu Qingyong's sword kinesis technique. Across the entire 9 sects domain, no one other than Zhu Qingyong knows that technique. How could some random young boy be proficient in it? Master, I am not lying. Every word I have said is true. Yuan Qingsu's mouth was filled with bitterness. As unbelievable as it sounds, it is all exactly what I experienced. Otherwise, where would these wounds on my body have come from? Lin Yu Heng shook her head. She naturally believed that Yuan Qingsu had been wounded by someone, but the account Yuan Qingsu gave was so absurd, it might as well have come from the 9th heaven beyond the mortal realm, making It nearly impossible for her to convince herself of such a tale. No matter how this person wounded you, as your master, I will certainly demand justice on your behalf. I shall go seek Liu Wenchen right now to get a proper explanation. Meanwhile, Fang Chen, who was completely unharmed by the earlier scuffle, returned to his abode and reviewed his battle with the female thief, feeling deeply dissatisfied with his own performance. I unleashed more than half of my cultivation methods, yet I still failed to capture a warrior at the second layer of the Golden Core Realm. My mastery of my cultivation techniques is still far too lacking. After pondering for a long while, Fang Chen took down his Guqin and rested it horizontally across his knees, the cultivation method of the asterisk Roaring Tiger and Soaring Dragon Art asterisk surfacing in his mind. He had already successfully comprehended the first layer, Tiger's Roar, in the main hall of the Spirit Beast Sect, and its power was so great that no one had yet been able to withstand it. However, judging from today's duel, its lethality is extremely limited when facing opponents with extraordinary movement techniques. I can attempt to comprehend the higher layers to see if I can resolve this flaw. Closing his eyes, he delved deep into comprehending the second layer. As dawn broke, he slowly opened his eyes, a faint glimmer of joy flickering in his gaze. It seems the senior who created the asterisk Roaring Tiger and Soaring Dragon Art asterisk also noticed the flaw of the Tiger's Roar's insufficient attack speed. The second layer, Dragon's Chant, not only boasts greater power, but also adds a penetrating effect to the sound waves. With that thought, he eagerly circulated his spiritual power, his hands brushing over the strings of the Guqin. Sharp, rapid notes exploded forth abruptly, as if a ferocious, ancient dragon suddenly burst from the sun-dappled wave-kissed surface of the sea, unleashing a deafening dragon's chant roar at point-blank range without warning. The sound was both deep and resonant, sharp enough to shatter eardrums, and capable of throwing the blood kai and spiritual power of any target into complete disarray. At the same time, the terrifying sound waves swept out in all directions in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. Deafening explosions of shattering stone rang out, echoing throughout the entire closed cultivation chamber. Glancing around, Fang Chen saw that the thick, solid walls of the cultivation chamber had been pierced full of holes by the sound waves. Streaks of faint light filtered through the gaps, casting shifting, unpredictable shadows across the white smoke-filled chamber. Fang Chen clicked his tongue in astonishment. A single attack had turned the cultivation chamber into a sieve. If he encountered that female thief again, she would not get off so easily as merely being shaken until her skin split and flesh tore. Most importantly, these sound waves can disrupt a person's blood kai and spiritual power, in other words, causing temporary paralysis. It is the perfect counter to fast, moving opponents, making it extremely difficult for them to use their movement techniques to escape the sound wave's attack range. Heh, I actually hope I run into that female thief again, so I can test this move on her, Fang Chen muttered to himself. Thump, 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 a knock sounded from outside the stone door. It was Cao Zhen. Junior brother Fang, the master is summoning you. Fang Chen opened the door, looked at this senior fellow disciple whom he had had minor conflicts with in the past, and asked, "Does the master have an order for me?" Cao Zhen spoke in a friendly, well-meaning tone. "It's regarding the commissioner from the Heavenly Secret Pavilion. The sect leader has urgently summoned all members of the Azure Cloud Sect. It has nothing to do with you, junior brother, don't worry." He had been miserably defeated by Cao Zhen the day before, suffering great humiliation. Fang Chen had easily crushed Cao Zhen, which was effectively avenging him, so he had taken the initiative to show goodwill, hoping to resolve all their past unpleasantness from now on. Fang Chen was naturally happy to accept this olive branch, and said, "Thank you for the reminder, senior brother Tao, but what major matter brings the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion commissioner here?" "That requires every single member of the Azure Cloud Sect to gather." Cao Zhen shook his head. "I don't know. I heard that all the elders and deacons of the Azure Cloud Sect were kept up all night last night. It seems someone offended this commissioner, making her fly into an unparalleled rage." Fang Chen's face was full of confusion. Who would be stupid enough to offend the commissioner this badly? The Heavenly Secrets Pavilion commissioner was already here to demand an explanation for a past grievance. Instead of treating her properly, why would anyone provoke her on purpose? However, this matter had nothing to do with him. He only needed to be an idle bystander watching the show, so he walked with a relaxed expression to the square in front of the sect leader's main hall. The square was packed full of people. Aside from the people from the sect leader peak, there were elders and disciples from every peak. Even the deacons who were rarely seen on normal days had all been summoned. Aside from the annual disciple assessment ceremonies, this was the first time Fang Chen had seen so many people gathered in the Azure Cloud Sect, which showed that the situation was quite serious. He stood on tiptoe to look towards the center of the square, and saw a well-preserved lady in palace attire sitting regally, with Liu Wenchen and several elders accompanying her, forcing apologetic smiles from time to time. There was no doubt that this was the commissioner from the Heavenly Secret Pavilion. Standing in front of the palace, dressed lady was a tall, slender figure that looked faintly familiar to Fang Chen, who was currently comparing the faces of the deacons, lined up before her one by one. She wore a light gauze long skirt printed with ink wash landscape patterns. Her figure was tall and graceful, her features were exquisite. Her jade-like skin was snow, white with a faint healthy flush. Her nose was high and straight, her gaze was sharp as a torch. She was a truly stunning beauty. At this moment, she stared intently at the few deacons before her, and after examining them carefully, she shook her head slightly, turning to the palace, dressed lady, and saying, "Master, they are not here." Lin Yu Heng took a small sip of tea and said calmly, "Bring the next batch." Liu Wenchen rubbed his temples and said, "Commissioner Lin, these are the last of the deacons. Is your disciple truly certain that the person who attacked her is a member of my Azure Cloud Sect?" Lin Yu Heng put down her teacup, her elegant eyebrows lifting slightly as she asked, "Are you certain no deacons are missing?" The several elders had already had Yuan Qingsu identify other personnel the previous night. Only the large number of deacons had been left to be identified until now. Liu Wenchen replied, "All deacons currently present in the sect are gathered here. Those not in the sect are all out on missions. It absolutely cannot be any of them." He was rather puzzled. Who on earth could have beaten Yuan Qingsu this badly? When he saw her injuries the previous night, even he had winced in shock. The attacker had been truly ruthless. If Yuan Qingsu had not run fast enough, she would have lost her life there. But who would be foolish enough to bully a disciple of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion? Even Feng Guchan, who loved to cause trouble for him as the sect leader, would never dare to set his sights on Lin Yu, Heng's disciple, because if he was caught, the consequences Feng Guchan would face would be far too severe for even him to bear. Lin Yu Heng frowned deeply and asked Yuan Qingsu, "Are you certain you have checked all of them?" Yuan Qingsu, who had toiled ceaselessly from midnight until this moment, felt a faint, throbbing dizziness in her skull. She had long been so drained that she ached to abandon the search entirely, and now that she had finished identifying all the deacons, she expelled a heavy, relieved breath, shook her head, and said, "No, that person's features are extremely distinctive. Should they appear, I would recognize them at a single glance. Even though I only caught a glimpse of their face in the flash of thunder and lightning, I can never erase it from my memory. That visage has already left a psychological scar on my mind." Lin Yu Heng was seething with dissatisfaction, and questioned Liu Wenchen, "Sect leader Liu, does your sect have any other formidable experts besides the elders and deacons?" Liu Wenchen gave a bitter smile. "My sect only has supreme elders, the sect leader, elders, deacons, and disciples. Is Commissioner Lin suspecting my sect's supreme elders, or our ordinary disciples?" Lin Yu Heng's expression froze abruptly. She had met every one of Qingyun Sect's supreme elders in the past, and none matched Yuan Qingsu's description in the slightest. As for disciples, if the disciple she had meticulously groomed with all the vast resources of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion was beaten to this wretched state by a mere Qingyun Sect disciple, she might as well die of shame on the spot, to spare herself the humiliation of being laughed to death when she returned to the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. Yet the entire length and breadth of Qingyun Sect had been searched thoroughly, and there was no trace of the person they sought. Lin Yu Heng could not help but grow suspicious, and said, "Qingsu, are you absolutely certain this person belongs to Qingyun Sect?" She was beginning to believe Liu Wenchen's judgment. It was highly possible that a cultivator from an external sect had deliberately orchestrated this incident to frame Qingyun Sect. Now even Yuan Qingsu hesitated. She had only caught a fleeting glimpse of the attire under the flare of thunder, and it had indeed borne the markings of Qingyun Sect. But if the perpetrator was truly a member of Qingyun Sect, why could they not be found, no matter how hard they searched? Matters had dragged on to this point, and she was exhausted. She might as well drop the investigation here, and treat it as a silent loss she had to bear. After all, she had been in the wrong to begin with, so the beating she received was not undeserved. Perhaps this disciple misidentified the clothing. Yuan Qingsu sighed, and cupped her fists in a formal salute to Liu Wenchen, the assembled elders, and all the deacons present. "I have disturbed all esteemed elders and senior brothers. Qingsu offers her most sincere apologies." She could no longer distinguish who was a deacon and who was not, so she kept her fists cupped and spun a full circle on the spot to salute everyone. Who would have thought that when she turned to a certain angle, her peripheral vision caught sight of a face craning to peek at the commotion, alight with unbridled nosy curiosity. She jolted violently as if struck by lightning, and immediately fixed her gaze on that direction. The face of a youth with skin as smooth and dark as polished ink jade came into clear view. Memories of last night, when she had been unable to escape no matter what desperate measures she took, flooded her mind, and a frigid, bone, deep chill shot from the soles of her feet straight to her heavenly spirit crown. She pointed a trembling finger at Fang Chen and shrieked, It's him. Master, it's him." Lin Yuheng, who had already given up on pursuing the culprit and was ready to swallow this bitter humiliation whole, immediately perked up and laughed in cold rage. He truly is a member of Qingyun Sect. Which one? But when she followed the direction of Yuan Qingsu's outstretched finger, she froze slightly in shock. "You have not pointed to the wrong person." The individual she indicated had a soft, youthful 18-year-old face. At that age, he should still be a newly recruited disciple of Qingyun Sect, should he not? Liu Wenchen was also stunned at first, assuming that the perpetrator was indeed someone from his own sect, but when he saw that she was pointing directly at Fang Chen, he instead looked Yuan Qingsu up and down with a deeply confused gaze. This girl looked perfectly rational and sane, after all. No matter the case, since the other party had identified Fang Chen, he ought to make a formal response. He waved at Fang Chen, "Come here for a moment." Fang Chen, who had not yet even worked out what the commotion he was watching was about, was suddenly called out, froze for a beat, and pushed his way through the crowd in utter confusion. He stepped before Liu Wenchen and said, "Master, you summoned me." Liu Wenchen pointed at Fang Chen and introduced, "Commissioner Lin, this is my youngest disciple. He joined the sect not long ago. Though he does not possess a spirit root, he is unfailingly diligent and eager to learn, and I hold him in high regard. If he has offended your disciple in any way, I, as his master, will offer my apologies on his behalf, but the grave crime of gravely injuring your disciple is one my apprentice cannot possibly bear. Please do not wrong an innocent person." Learning that he was truly a newly recruited junior disciple, Lin Yuheng immediately ruled out all suspicion against him. How could a fresh, untested disciple be so overwhelmingly powerful? And the faintly angered remarks that followed from Liu Wenchen made Lin Yuheng, who had come to demand accountability and retribution, look extremely awkward and embarrassed. A clear look of apology crossed her face. She said, "Sect leader Liu, you misunderstand. My disciple would never deliberately frame your apprentice. She has simply misidentified the culprit." As she spoke, she glared fiercely at Yuan Qingsu and snapped, "Aren't you going to apologize to this junior brother immediately? How can you misidentify someone so badly? What is wrong with you?" Wronging a senior disciple could almost be forgiven as a mistake, but wronging a new disciple who has only been in the sect for a few months, who would believe you are not attempting to deliberately frame him? As her master, she felt utterly humiliated by this farce and barked, "Apologize to him now." Yuan Qingsu immediately protested, "Master, it is him. I did not misidentify him." Liu Wenchen, who had already been somewhat displeased by the entire affair, now grew truly furious. Let alone the fact that he thought very highly of Fang Chen now, even if he had no regard for the boy at all, he would never tolerate anyone slandering his disciple so boldly. "Miss Yuan, you must take responsibility for your words. Are you claiming that this little disciple of Qingyun Sect, who joined barely a short time ago, gravely injured you, a proud, elite disciple of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion? According to your account, my disciple is proficient in multiple Earth-grade cultivation methods, also practices the techniques of the True Thunder Sect, and the Heavenly Sound Sect, and even more incredibly, has mastered the sword control technique of Senior Zhu Qingyong. Ha! My disciple possesses such heaven-defying divine abilities, and I, as his master, had no idea of it whatsoever." The assembled elders of Qingyun Sect also wore looks of sheer, dumbfounded disbelief. When Hongyao looked Yuan Qingsu up and down as if she were examining a mentally unwell person, and said, "If my sect had such a monstrously talented disciple, this old woman would gladly sacrifice 20 years of her lifespan for the privilege." Even Feng Guchan, who had always been hostile and antagonistic toward Fang Chen, almost spat out the tea in his mouth when he heard these absurd claims and said, "We are grateful for Miss Yuan's high opinion of Qingyun Sect's disciples, but the kind of heaven-defying prodigy you speak of does not exist within our ranks." Lin Yuheng's face burned with shame and embarrassment. She glanced sideways at Yuan Qingsu and snapped, "Shut your mouth. Stop spouting such ridiculous nonsense. The Heavenly Secrets Pavilion cannot even cultivate such a peerless, heaven-defying disciple, let alone Qingyun Sect, and a newly recruited disciple at that." At this moment, she was half convinced Yuan Qingsu had suffered a severe brain injury in the fight. for her words were so absurd and nonsensical. She felt utterly humiliated by the entire spectacle, and repeatedly cupped her fists in a formal salute to Liu Wenchen and the Qingyun Sect elders. My deepest apologies for making a fool of myself. In front of all of you, this disciple of mine may have suffered some confusion to her mind, and her words are incoherent and irrational. Please forgive her, I beg of you. She had arrived intending to demand justice and retribution, yet now she was forced to apologize publicly in front of the entire assembly, her reputation completely and utterly tarnished. Yuan Qingsu's eyes went wide with shock and disbelief. No, the culprit is right in front of our eyes. How am I the one who is mentally unwell? Master, it really is him. Why don't you ask yourself to confirm? Yuan Qingsu stamped her foot anxiously, nearly frantic with frustration. Fang Chen swallowed nervously, cold sweat seeping through the fabric of his robes at his back. He finally understood exactly what the commotion he had been watching was about. But why had the drama he had been enjoying so much suddenly landed squarely on his own head? The female thief he had injured the previous day was no random wanderer. She was truly a disciple of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion. No wonder her silhouette had looked familiar. It was Yuan Qingsu, whom he had almost beaten to death. Thinking of how ruthlessly he had struck that day, large beads of cold sweat also popped up on his forehead. Fang Chen, why are you sweating so profusely? Liu Wenchen, who was standing right next to him, noticed Fang Chen's odd, guilty behavior immediately. Fang Chen replied guiltily, his words stammering and disjointed, and nothing. Liu Wenchen immediately grasped the reason, glowered furiously at Lin Yu, Heng, and thundered, Commissioner Lin, control your disciple. Look at how terribly she has frightened my apprentice. If her actions damage his Dao heart, this sect master will never let this matter rest. Fang Chen was his most prized treasure right now. How could he tolerate anyone intimidating him? Lin Yu Heng spun around at once, snapping harshly at Yuan Qingsu. You wretched girl, are you plotting to rebel? Apologize this instant. She was so incensed her lungs felt ready to burst. Was Yuan Qingsu not usually so sensible and reasonable? Had she taken the wrong elixir today, to make mistake after mistake in full view of the public? Tears swam in Yuan Qingsu's grievance-filled eyes. The person who had bullied her was standing right before her, yet her master was forcing her to apologize. She wanted to retort, but was cowed into silence by the swirling rage in Lin Yu Heng's gaze. Swallowing down the mountain of resentment in her chest, she dragged her feet reluctantly over to Fang Chen, glared daggers at him, and ground each word out between her teeth. I am sorry. Asterisk crack, asterisk. Lin Yu Heng could no longer contain her fury. She rose to her feet and slapped Yuan Qingsu hard on the arm. You insolent apprentice, do you mean to anger me to death? Is that any way to apologize? Apologize properly. The sharp pain made Yuan Qingsu's tears spill down her cheeks instantly. From the day she had taken Lin Yu Heng as her master until now, her teacher had never struck her, yet now she was being wronged so unjustly. Fang Chen looked thoroughly guilty, coughed dryly, and said, Senior Lin, senior sister Yuan is still recovering from her injuries, so it is only natural her mood is unsteady. Do not be too harsh on her. I accept her apology. Let this matter end here. When Lin Yu Heng heard this, she could not help but regard Fang Chen with newfound admiration. Her own unruly apprentice had repeatedly wronged him so stubbornly, yet he brushed the entire incident off as if it were trivial. Though he was young, he possessed a breadth of mind far beyond that of ordinary people. While she was deeply impressed, she could not help but warm to him considerably. By comparison, her own disciple who refused to repent, and was now wallowing in inexplicable grievance, made her angrier the longer she looked at her. Cry, cry, all you know how to do is cry. Look at him, he is younger than you yet far more magnanimous. If he had not pleaded on your behalf, I would have punished you severely today. At these words, Yuan Qingsu ground her silver teeth so hard they nearly shattered. That despicable wretch had been so vicious the night before, yet now he was posturing as a kind-hearted soul. I will never let you get away with this. Fang Chen felt awkward under her scorching glare, averted his gaze, cupped his fists in a formal salute, and said, Senior Lin overpraises me. My master and the various elders often instruct disciples that humility and tolerance are the foremost virtues. This junior is merely following their teachings. Listen to that, he received praise, and did not forget to credit his master first. Lin Yu Heng could not imagine how gratifying it would be to have a disciple as thoughtful as this. Naturally, the gaze she turned on Fang Chen grew even fonder. It is truly commendable how sensible you are, child. Lin Yu Heng pulled 2 iron pellets from her sleeve and said, These 2 cloud-burst iron pellets from the Heavenly Secret Pavilion are for you, as a small compensation for the disturbance earlier. Fang Chen had sharp eyes and recognized the items immediately, These were the two extraordinarily powerful hidden weapons Yuan Qingsu had thrown at him the previous day. If wielded properly, their power would be far greater than what he had witnessed the day before. He was secretly overjoyed, but did not dare to accept them right away. Instead, he first looked toward Liu Wenchen. At this moment, Liu Wenchen was also glowing with pride from Fang Chen's perfectly appropriate words earlier. How had he never noticed how well spoken Fang Chen was before? Catching Fang Chen's questioning gaze, he did not hesitate in the slightest, nodded and said, "One must not refuse a gift from an elder. You may accept them." Only then did Fang Chen accept the pellets with both hands. "Thank you, Senior Lin." Lin Yu Heng was even more pleased now. Look at him, he even asked for his master's permission before accepting a gift. This showed he held his master in his thoughts at all times, unlike her own useless apprentice, who only knew how to talk back. Having compensated Fang Chen, this matter was temporarily concluded. She had originally planned to seclude herself for a few days before handling the report from the Grand Supreme Sect Master, but since she had exited seclusion early, and all the elders and disciples of the Azure Cloud Sect were present, there was no better time than the present. She might as well settle this matter now, so she could return to the Heavenly Secret Pavilion to report on her mission sooner. Sect Master Liu, has that disciple named Fang Chen returned? Lin Yu Hing put away her smile, her tone formal and businesslike as she spoke solemnly. Hearing this, Liu Wenchen's expression immediately turned grave, and he said, "He has already returned." His heart clenched. What was fated to come had finally arrived. All the elders also lost their relaxed expressions, their nerves as taut as if they were awaiting judgment. The disciples, who had already learned of this matter, also wore solemn expressions. If this matter was not handled properly, the Azure Cloud Sect would be punished by the Heavenly Secret Pavilion, and the lives of all disciples would be affected in turn. When the lips are lost, the teeth grow cold. No one could escape this unscathed. Upon confirming Fang Chen had returned, Lin Yu Heng nodded slowly, her gaze sweeping across the disciples present with imposing, unspoken majesty. "Where is Fang Chen? Step forward." Her voice rolled like a surging flood, shaking the very souls of those present. Even disciples who had not been called by name trembled unconsciously. One could only imagine how much more intimidating this would be for Fang Chen, the person at the center of the matter. This was a deliberate move on Lin Yu Heng's part. She wanted to rattle him first, to make the subsequent interrogation easier. To her surprise, a calm, unyielding voice sounded from right beside her. "This disciple is Fang Chen. Greetings, Commissioner Lin." Lin Yu Heng turned her eyes to Fang Chen, who was standing right next to her, a look of astonishment crossing her face. "You are Fang Chen." Yuan Qingsu, who was standing to the side, was also stunned for a moment, then secretly ground her teeth. "Fang Chen, is it? You little bastard, I will remember your name." Fang Chen said with a solemn expression, "Commissioner Lin, you may ask whatever you wish. This disciple will hold nothing back and fully assist with the interrogation." Seeing Fang Chen's respectful demeanor, Lin Yu Heng felt she had frightened him a little, so she quickly softened her tone and said gently, "Do not be afraid, this is merely routine official business. I will only ask a few simple questions." Liu Wenchen exchanged glances with several elders, and they all saw the relief in each other's eyes. They were glad that Fang Chen had won Lin Yu Heng's goodwill and was being treated so considerately by her. Perhaps she would show leniency in the punishment for Fang Chen's sake. Fang Chen smiled and said, "Please go ahead, Senior Lin." He had acted with a clear conscience during his time at the Grand Supreme Sect and felt he had done nothing wrong. Lin Yu Heng nodded slightly, took out the personal handwritten letter from the Grand Supreme Sect Master, and said, "Not long ago, the Grand Supreme Sect Master sent this report letter to the Heavenly Secret Pavilion. The content of the report claims that the Azure Cloud Sect Master is shielding his relatives and shirking his duty in the war effort." From Liu Wenchen at the top to the most ordinary disciple at the bottom, countless question marks popped up in everyone's minds. They had been guessing what the Grand Supreme Sect Master's report would contain, and had thought up 100, 1,000 possibilities, but none of them had ever imagined it would be accusations of shielding relatives and shirking battle duties. Where did this even come from? Liu Wenchen asked in confusion, "Commissioner Lin, are there any other accusations in the report besides this?" Lin Yu Heng shook her head slightly, "Only this one charge." Liu Wenchen could not help but laugh and say, "I have even sent my own daughter to the giant sect frontlines to carry out the most dangerous missions. How could I possibly be shielding my relatives? This is simply absurd." Several elders were also utterly baffled. Right now, Liu Qingxian was still fighting on the very front lines of the Great War between the human race and demonic beasts, so how could she be accused of shirking battle? What was more, even if Liu Wenchen was reluctant to let his kin risk danger, there was no need for him to file a report, was there? Lin Yuheng stared at the detailed contents of the accusation letter, frowned and spoke. Sect Master Liu, is Fang Chen actually your kin? The accusation letter claims Fang Chen is your son-in-law. Liu Wenchen was stunned for a moment. He nodded and said, "That is correct. This sect has indeed publicly announced that Fang Chen is my son-in-law, so it is not wrong to say he is my kin, but I also assigned him a mission, and he has only just returned now. Where does the claim of shielding him come from?" Now, Lin Yuheng was even more confused. She had originally assumed Fang Chen was some top-tier disciple, only to learn now that he was merely a new disciple, his strength at most reaching the 6th or 7th layer of the Foundation. Establishment realm. Assigning him a mission was the height of impartiality. It had nothing to do with shielding him whatsoever. What was wrong with the Grand Supreme Sect Master? What sort of infraction was he even reporting? On the other hand, Yuan Qingsu, standing to the side, narrowed her beautiful eyes and spoke up. "May I ask, Sect Master Liu, what kind of mission did you assign Fang Chen?" Liu Wenchen glanced at her and replied with full confidence, "A Tier 3 mission, escorting spiritual medicines. Is there any problem with that?" Lin Yuheng nodded slightly. Given Fang Chen's strength, carrying out a Tier 3 mission was completely unproblematic. It was the most suitable arrangement possible. She truly could not understand why the Grand Supreme Sect Master had filed this report. Yuan Qingsu, however, sucked in a sharp breath and exclaimed, "What, you assigned him a Tier 3 mission? No wonder the Grand Supreme Sect Master reported this." Fang Chen's terrifying strength was great enough to go to the front lines and beat a whole group of Beast Kings while they were tied up. Yet they assigned him to carry out a Tier 3 logistics mission within the borders of the 9 sects. Never mind the Grand Supreme Sect Master, even she wanted to file a report right now. This level of shielding was simply too excessive. "Shut your mouth, no one asked you to speak," Lin Yuheng scolded. "Have you not embarrassed me as your master enough already?" She turned her gaze to Fang Chen and asked doubtfully, "As things stand, there is nothing wrong with your mission. Did you do something while you were at the Grand Supreme Sect that displeased the Grand Supreme Sect Master? Tell me the truth. If the Grand Supreme Sect Master is slandering you out of malice, I will stand up for you." Fang Chen was also very confused and cupped his hands in salute as he said, "To be honest, this disciple also has no idea where he offended the Grand Supreme Sect Master. I only exchanged pointers on the way of medicine and the way of martial arts with their disciples. I truly cannot think of any place where I overstepped my bounds." Exchanged pointers on the way of medicine and martial arts. That is the most ordinary thing in the world. What has gotten into the Grand Supreme Sect Master that he would publicly accuse Fang Chen of being shielded? Liu Wenchen and the group of elders were also completely unable to make sense of it. This accusation was truly utterly unfounded. Yuan Qingsu, however, caught a hint of something and said, "Master, you might as well ask him how he exchanged pointers on the martial way." Lin Yuheng thought it over carefully and agreed that only during martial arts exchanges would there be a chance of accidentally offending someone and displeasing the Grand Supreme Sect Master. What kind of harm could Fang Chen, with his meager strength, possibly inflict? The strength of the Grand Supreme Sect's disciples was far higher than that of Qingyun Sect's disciples. It would already be a blessing if Fang Chen came back uninjured. How could he hurt anyone? But since there was a lead, she might as well ask as a matter of procedure. "How did you exchange martial arts pointers with the Grand Supreme Sect's disciples?" Fang Chen sorted through his memories and spoke unhurriedly. "First, I stood up for my martial niece Yan Yuking and taught a lesson to the person who spoke rudely to her." Martial niece Yan Yuking taught a rude person a lesson. In that short sentence, there was so much information that everyone present could not process it for a moment. Lin Yuheng was stunned for a moment. "Whose disciple is Yan Yuking? Why are you able to call her your martial niece?" As someone stationed in the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion, she naturally did not know much about the situation of the disciples of the 9 sects. But the Qingyun Sect elders present, there was no way they did not know. Liu Wenchen's brows shot up and he said hurriedly, "Fang Chen, cease this nonsense. Yan Yuking is the great disciple of the divine physician Qingyun. How can you call her your martial niece? If word of this reaches his ears and he holds you accountable, it will be no trivial matter. Seniority is not something that can be messed with, especially for a generation of divine physicians like Qingyun Sheng, whose name was known across the entire lands of the 9 sects. Seniority could never be carelessly messed up. So she was Qingyun Sheng's disciple. Lin Yuheng was slightly shocked and also warned him, Fang Chen, you must not spout such nonsense. Divine Physician Shengyuan also has extensive connections in the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion. If people learn you were disrespectful to him, some members of the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion will hold you responsible. Ryuan Kingsu curled her lips. You really are bold. You even dare take advantage of Divine Physician Shengyuan. Aren't you afraid someone will come after you to cause trouble? The faces of several elders also shifted slightly. The Grand Supreme Sect's Great Elder, the #1 Divine Physician in the 9 Sect lands, held a lofty status that could never be offended. At this moment, many people came to a realization. Could the reason Fang Chen was reported be because he ran his mouth recklessly at the Grand Supreme Sect and offended Qingyun Sect? The case was solved. This was the reason. Lin Yuheng was somewhat speechless. After all that fuss, the disaster came from his own mouth. She was just about to scold Fang Chen a little, when from among the group of elders, a series of earth-shattering words suddenly rang out. Fang Chen is indeed the junior brother of Divine Physician Shengyuan. Lin Yuheng followed the direction of the voice and looked over, only to find it was Wen Hongyao, Peak Master of Medicine Peak, and could not help but feel confused. Elder Wen, what makes you say that? One is the Grand Elder of Taixing Sect, the other is a new disciple of Qingyun Sect. The two have no connection at all. How could they be senior and junior brothers? Liu Wenchen said solemnly, Elder Wen, I know you wish to protect Fang Chen, but you must not speak recklessly of such matters. The other elders also murmured among themselves. It was common knowledge that Wen Hongyao valued Fang Chen greatly. Back when Fang Chen joined the sect, Wen Hongyao even quarreled with Zhao Wuji to fight for the right to take him in. But to go so far as to fabricate such a lie to shelter him was simply going too far. Wen Hongyao looked at Fang Chen, a wisp of envy in his eyes alongside undisguised admiration. I originally had no intention of revealing this matter, lest the sect master and all elders are too shocked and disrupt Fang Chen's daily life. Now that Fang Chen is in trouble, I have to step forward to testify. Shengyuan Sheng has indeed acknowledged Fang Chen as his junior brother, and I was present on the spot at the time. Pausing for a moment, he added, as for the reason, it involves certain inheritances. You may go ask Shengyuan Sheng if you wish. Do not press Fang Chen for answers. This is of benefit and no harm to our Qingyun Sect. Seeing him speak with such certainty, Liu Wenchen's pupils trembled as if struck by a massive earthquake, and he looked at Fang Chen with a face full of disbelief. His own disciple was actually the junior brother of the #1 Divine Physician of the 9 sects. He opened his mouth, unable to resist the urge to inquire into the reason behind this, but thought of Wen Hongyao's words and forcibly held himself back. For Shengyuan Sheng to acknowledge Fang Chen as his junior brother, there must be an extremely important secret behind the matter. Asking about it in public would undoubtedly be beneficial to Fang Chen. After a moment of consideration, he said in a deep voice, All of you need only know of this matter today. Do not indulge your curiosity regarding the reason behind it. Curiosity is human nature, especially when it comes to such an absurd and bizarre anecdote. But Liu Wenchen's single sentence left several elders, who were itching with curiosity, no choice but to wear faces of deep frustration. Ryuan Kingsu's beautiful eyes went wide, her face full of disbelief. It's actually true. No wonder this fellow said he exchanged medical knowledge with Taixing Sect disciples. Turns out he is also a physician. Thinking of how he had been ruthless to her yesterday, she could not help but snort. That makes him a life-taking physician, if anything. Lin Yuheng's face was full of shock, as if she was seeing Fang Chen for the first time as she looked him up and down. I have underestimated you. I thought Fang Chen was just an ordinary disciple who knew you carry such an impressive title as Shengyuan Sheng's junior brother. That being the case, calling Yan Yuking your grand nephew disciple is only reasonable, not an improper remark at all. Lin Yuheng then frowned. If he had not brought disaster upon himself with his words, then how had he offended the Taixing Sect master? Suddenly she remembered the second half of Fang Chen's statement, that he had taught a lesson to those who bullied his grand nephew disciple Yan Yuking, so she said, Who was the person you taught a lesson to? Fang Chen recalled, it was a female disciple named Zhang Qin. She spoke viciously, and took advantage of Divine Physician Shengyuan rarely involving himself in disputes between disciples to bully Yan Yuking repeatedly. I made a move to teach her a small lesson. Lin Yuheng asked again, This girl's cultivation is not very high, right? Anyone who could be taught a lesson by a little disciple like Fang Chen could not have much cultivation, at most foundation, establishment, realm, 3rd or 4th layer. Would the Taixing Sect master bother to take revenge on Fang Chen for a disciple of that level? That would make him far too idle as a sect master. Fang Chen nodded. Indeed, nothing impressive around Foundation Establishment Realm 8th Layer. Lin Yu Heng's brows shot up. How much Foundation Establishment Realm 8th Layer? You could teach her a lesson. She was filled with confusion. But when she looked around, all the people of Qingyun Sect had normal expressions, no sign of surprise at all. Liu Wenchen laughed with no small amount of pride. Commissioner Lin, do not underestimate him. Though he is a new disciple and lacks spirit roots, his achievements in the path of body refinement are extremely high. He previously defeated a Foundation Establishment Realm 8th Layer cultivator with his body refinement skills during the disciple rating assessment, an excellent record. Lin Yuheng was extremely shocked and could not help but look Fang Chen over again. Good lad, you have hidden your strength well. I thought you had little strength just having joined the sect. Turns out you are an exceptionally rare body refinement prodigy. She did not know whether to laugh or be angry. This was clearly a junior, yet he had forced her to reevaluate him time and time again. Ryuan Kingsu's eyes nearly popped out of her head at the side. You actually practice body refinement too. It's a blessing from my ancestors that I wasn't beaten to death by you last night. She had thought Fang Chen had used all his trump cards last night, but only after this question did she learn that he had actually hidden a set of powerful body refinement skills as well. Lin Yuheng thought for a long while, then said, a Foundation Establishment Realm 8th Layer female disciple is not enough to anger the Taixing Sect Master. What else did you do afterwards? Everyone looked over. Just teaching a rude disciple a lesson on behalf of Shengyuan Sheng's disciple was indeed no big deal. There must be another reason for the Taixing Sect Master to go so far as to file a complaint. Fang Chen carefully recalled. Then I followed Yan Yuking, and by chance, encountered the Taixing Sect's Disciple Grand Competition. By coincidence, I stepped onto the stage to spar with Taixing Sect disciples a few times. Both sides stopped when there was a clear winner. No casualties occurred. I then took the spiritual medicine I was awarded and left Taixing Sect. That was the end of it. Cao Zhen murmured, could it be that junior brother Fang, as an outsider, participated in the Taixing Sect's Disciple Grand Competition, and the Taixing Sect Master found it impolite? Liu Wenchen shook his head slightly. The Taixing Sect's Disciple Grand Competition has a segment where guests from other sects are invited to friendly spar. This is their long-standing tradition. There is nothing wrong with Fang Chen taking the stage, and the sparring was entirely proper as well. Several elders were equally bewildered. The whole matter sounded perfectly ordinary, and they simply could not fathom how Fang Chen had incurred the wrath of the Supreme Sect Master. Lin Yuheng rubbed the space between his brows. After questioning for half a day, we are still completely in the dark. The Supreme Sect Master was deliberately vague in the report letter, refusing to state the reason clearly. That old man never lets anyone have a moment's peace. Ryuan Kingsu, who stood silently to one side, glanced at Fang Chen, a faint guess forming in her mind. Master, you might as well ask him who he sparred with, and what the outcomes of those duels were. Lin Yuheng cast her a skeptical glance. What problem could possibly arise from formal martial arts sparring? Moreover, Fang Chen's physical cultivation was only at the 8th layer of the Foundation Establishment Realm. Was it possible that he had thrashed the Supreme Sect's disciples so thoroughly that the Supreme Sect Master had suffered a crippling loss of face? At this thought, Lin Yuheng froze abruptly, his eyes locking onto Fang Chen intently as he asked suspiciously, who exactly did you spar with from the Supreme Sect? Fang Chen recollected. First was a female disciple named Luo Tianjiao, who seemed to be at the 7th layer of the Foundation Establishment Realm. I defeated her. Liu Wenchen, who stood nearby, revealed a faint trace of pride. Luo Tianjie was a new disciple of the Supreme Sect's Green Bamboo Peak and was said to be the most talented disciple the peak had produced in a decade. He never expected his own disciple would give her such a humbling lesson the moment they met. Wen Hongyao also smiled, saying, Boy, you have done our Azure Cloud Sect proud, but you were lucky you did not run into Wang Yunj, the chief disciple of Green Bamboo Peak. He is a ferocious powerhouse, and if you had crossed paths with him, you would have certainly come away with a severe beating. Who would have thought? Fang Chen would muse thoughtfully. Wang Yunj, I sparred with him too. I won. The air fell silent abruptly. Liu Wenchen and the several elders stared at each other blankly, frozen on the spot. Noticing their strange expressions, Lin Yuheng asked in astonishment, what is this Wang Yunj's cultivation level? Wen Hongyao wore an expression as if he had seen a ghost, his gaze locked unblinkingly on Fang Chen as he replied, 9th layer of the Foundation Establishment Realm. Lin Yuheng was taken aback. Did you not all say this boy only has a physical cultivation at the 8th layer of the Foundation Establishment Realm? How could he defeat someone at the 9th layer? After a long moment, Liu Wenchen drew a deep breath, his face filled with shock as he asked, Fang Chen, what is the meaning of this? Fang Chen shrugged. Wang Yunj was not as strong as everyone makes him out to be. He lost after just a few exchanges. The assembled disciples either twitched at the corners of their mouths or swayed unsteadily on their feet. Who says such outrageous things? Wang Yunj was one of the most formidable disciples in the entire Supreme Sect, yet Fang Chen dismissed him as nothing remarkable. Liu Wenchen was overwhelmed with joy, grabbing Fang Chen by both shoulders as he asked, "Could it be that your cultivation advanced again on your journey to the Supreme Sect?" He turned the matter over in his mind repeatedly. This was the only plausible explanation. Before Fang Chen could reply, Lai Qingfeng burst into loud laughter. "Ha ha ha, you have won immense glory for our Azure Cloud Sect. I know Wang Yunj's master well. He has always looked down on our Azure Cloud Sect. By defeating his prized disciple, you have delivered a stinging slap to his face. I have dealt with the green bamboo peak elder before. That old fossil makes no secret of his contempt for our sect." Pausing for a moment, Lai Qingfeng added, "It is only a shame that that old cur from Hidden Sword Peak has disciples whose strength is far too high for you to defeat at present. Otherwise, you could have also dealt a heavy blow to his arrogance." At the mention of the Hidden Sword Peak elder, Liu Wenchen's face also darkened, and he snorted. "Is that the same old wretch who visited your Heavenly Sword Peak, who you treated to the finest food and wine, only for him to leave in disgust?" Lai Qingfeng's face was grim as he replied, "I would not care if he only disdained me, but he looked down on my disciples, disparaged their talents and sword techniques, and scorned them as completely worthless. Several of my disciples suffered damage to their Dao heart as a result, and they remain dispirited to this day. I will settle this score sooner or later through his disciples." But as he spoke, he fell silent. Marching to the Supreme Sect to demand justice sounded completely unrealistic, and he was clearly all talk and no action. He naturally had no face to continue speaking on the matter. Just as the atmosphere grew somewhat somber, Fang Chen rubbed his nose and said, "Elder Lai, Master, does this Hidden Sword Peak you speak of have a female disciple named Lai Shiqian?" Hearing this, Lai Qingfeng grunted in affirmation. "That is his prized star disciple. Her cultivation has reached the perfected 9th layer of the Foundation Establishment realm, and she ranks among the top 3 disciples of the entire Supreme Sect." As he spoke, a thought crossed Lai Qingfeng's mind, and he asked with concern, "You did not run into her, did you?" "That female disciple is just as snide and bitter as her master. When she accompanied her master to visit Heavenly Sword Peak in the past, she made no shortage of snide, sarcastic remarks." "I did, actually," Fang Chen nodded lightly. "I encountered that woman on the sparring stage." Lai Qingfeng hurriedly scanned him from head to toe, asking, "She did not harm you, did she? As a disciple of Azure Cloud Peak, who defeated Wang Yunj, you drew immense attention. With her temperament, she would never have tolerated that." Fang Chen wore a strange expression. "I am perfectly fine. She, on the other hand, is probably nursing rather severe injuries." The air fell silent once more, and every pair of eyes fixed on Fang Chen gradually widened in shock. Liu Wenchen asked in astonishment, "What do you mean? Don't tell your master that you defeated her." Fang Chen smiled helplessly. "Why wouldn't I be able to win?" The crowd was thunderstruck. Fang Chen had actually won yet again, and his opponent was none other than one of the top 3 supreme powerhouses of the Qingyun Sect. Even Lin Yuheng could not help but draw a quiet breath. She had lost count of how many times Fang Chen had exceeded her expectations. It seemed she could never fathom the true depth of his strength. From an ordinary low-ranked disciple at the start to a cultivator capable of defeating a peak 9th layer Foundation Establishment realm expert now, the gulf between those two identities was simply staggering. She was half amused, half exasperated. "I finally understand why the Qingyun Sect Master reported you. You practically went there to crash their event. No wonder he filed the complaint." Being able to defeat a peak 9th layer Foundation Establishment realm cultivator was sufficient proof of how formidable Fang Chen's strength was. With such power, he was more than qualified to take on Tier 1 missions, yet he had only been assigned a Tier 3 mission. It was no wonder the Qingyun Sect reported Liu Wenchen for shielding Fang Chen and deliberately avoiding high-stakes battles. Only then did Liu Wenchen and the several elders suddenly see the light. Far from being furious, they were overjoyed beyond measure. Liu Wenchen was so excited that his face glowed with delight. "Ha ha ha, as expected of my prized disciple, you've completely humiliated the entire Qingyun Sect. That was perfectly done." Lai Qingfeng wore an expression of immense satisfaction. That old fool, the Hidden Sword Peak Master, actually got his comeuppance today. His face must have turned green with rage, right? When Hong Yao burst into long, unheard hearty laughter, no wonder the Taixing Sect Master was evasive and vague in his report, refusing to state the reason for his complaint no matter what. He lost face so badly, he didn't dare mention it. Ha ha ha. The rest of the elders and disciples, upon hearing this joyous news, all felt their chests swell with pride, their faces shining with honor. Who said the Taixing Sect, one of the three upper sects, was unbeatable, had they not been thoroughly routed by a new disciple of the Qingyun Sect. Liu Wenchen could not stop laughing. Didn't the Taixing Sect love putting on airs and hosting that so-called friendly match segment? I'd like to see if they dare hold another one next year. He clapped Fang Chen heavily on the shoulder, his eyes brimming with delight, while a twinge of regret gnawed at him for having neglected Fang Chen at first. If he had known what a priceless talent the boy was, he would have doted on him like a treasure long ago. But it was not too late now. You have done excellently, exceptionally so. Liu Wenchen voiced his firm support. Even if our Qingyun Sect receives any punishment this time, this sect master will be overjoyed. You have no need to blame yourself or feel any guilt. The other elders and disciples also broke into grins. If they were to be punished, it would not be for any wrongdoing, but because their Qingyun Sect had stolen the entire spotlight. This was no punishment at all. It was clearly a badge of honor. Lin Yu, Heng coughed lightly. She was still present on the scene as the representative of the Heavenly Secret Pavilion, after all. Their glee at the thought of receiving punishment was practically a snub to the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. They could wait until she left to celebrate all they wanted. Liu Wenchen and the elders smiled awkwardly, quickly schooling their expressions. The proper respect due to the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion still had to be shown. With that, the matter was effectively concluded. Lin Yuheng took a deep breath and spoke. The investigation is complete. Fang Chen possesses extraordinary strength, and while the fact that he was only assigned a Tier 3 mission when he should have been given Tier 1 missions does give rise to suspicion of deliberately avoiding high-stakes battles, this commissioner has verified that Fang Chen's strength only improved recently. The prior mission assignment was not improper. The Taixing Sect Master's report is rejected. In other words, the Qingyun Sect shall not receive any punishment. The entire crowd was invigorated, every face alight with excited joy. Lin Yuheng also smiled, saying, Sect Master Liu, congratulations on gaining such an exceptional disciple. This young man would be an outstanding talent even in our Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. You must cultivate him well. Do not waste his gift. Liu Wenchen happily slung an arm around Fang Chen's shoulder. Rest assured, Commissioner Lin. For such a disciple, this sect master will spare no resource to help him reach his full potential. Lin Yuheng nodded, her smiling gaze falling on Fang Chen as she chided him playfully. You little rascal, you certainly know how to surprise people, but don't get cocky. You have defeated two of Taixing Sect's top prodigies in a row. Their senior brother, Hua Xianchen, will not let you off so easily.